Yellow. Hello. I'm late. Honestly, I was just gonna go to bed, but I figured I'd come on here and bullshit a little bit. I just had a buzz ball, a chocolate one. I don't know if I recommend it. Not my favorite. ATS, I'm cracking up. Okay, I don't mean to be mean, but what's with all the Botox? Do I need to get Botox? Let me know. Thank you. Be nice about it. Thanks. Hey, we're just hanging out. We're just hanging out. We're hanging. It's Saturday night, late night. Hey, I saw ATS in here, Crease, Ramon, Barry. Is it just us? Just a little cupcake circle? Um, what's up? What What's new? What's the tea? What's the tea on the streets? Tell me everything. Um this Nancy case. What do you guys think is going to happen? Like, is Nancy never going to be found? Because I'm starting to feel that way. I can get notified. We just started. Literally like 1 second ago. You're good. I'm over here just losing hope. I'm losing hope. Hold on. Let me pull up. I had some videos on here on my phone that I'm going to share to my computer. So, what do you guys think? I don't know. I feel like I haven't been hearing as much about the Nancy case as today as I have other days, and I'm not even sure if I got it right. Is it 21? Day 21? I hope it's not day 22 and I'm wrong. I'll fix it on the thumbnail and on my title if I am, but I believe it's day 21 according to I think Nancy Grace. Um yeah, I know. Tech Girl says she's probably not here with us anymore. I tried to remain very positive. I really have, but I'm kind of starting to feel like, what's the point in even covering the case? I feel like it's losing traction. And I don't want to feel that way because I do want to continue to cover the case. I do want Nancy to be found. But also, like, what's up with this sheriff's department? Now, allegedly, they're asking for permits for people to search. They don't want Nancy to be found. They don't. And I think I even saw that Megan Kelly wasn't even really like doing updates like every day anymore either. I still don't think she ever got home. I don't think she got home either, Wilson. But hey, Vanjie. Hey, Leisha. Good to see you. Hi, Evie. Oh, Lucy. I'm home. I was gonna go night night, but I just had a chocolate buzz ball. Not my favorite. Not my fave. After oh, really? Okay, we're gonna watch that, Elijah. So you already beat us to it. I haven't watched anything on Nancy today other than um I think I went into JLR's like a little bit, but nothing was happening. So I do want to watch wait, if Nancy did something, we'll watch that too. But Brian Enton is the first one I wanted to play his episode. So if you already watched it, sorry, I have not. They can only devote so many resources when it's a dead end. They're not finding anything and they need to redirect their efforts to other cases, unfortunately. Abby says, wait, what? Permits, is that a missing person? Wait, what permits this as a missing person? Brian seems to be the only one keeping this alive. Yeah, so I guess there was like a group of female like searchers and they came from Mexico and they were searching and I'll pull it up. Pimas County made an announcement that you need like a permit to search now. And I didn't know about that. So let me pull that up before we watch Brian Enton. We're just gonna do like little updates, although I don't think there's too much to update on Nancy other than um I don't really know, you guys. I don't know what to think about this case. Okay. Yeah. So it says private search parties. Volunteer search groups have inquired about being in the area. Per the sheriff, they were asked to please give investigators the space they need to do their work. We appreciate the concern and we all want to find Nancy, but this work is best left to professionals. Pimas County has volunteer opportunities if they wish to get involved with the departments. Private property laws apply, and it is up to each individual property owner to grant permission for someone to search their property. I guess it's not a permit. I guess it just maybe depends in the neighborhood, like people's property and stuff. But I know that, they were getting a lot of shit like on the news about like streamers being there, boots on the ground. I did see something about that. I'll see if I save the video, but I do want to watch this Brian Enton clip from today.
Came up with a profile of who he thinks is responsible for Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, what he thinks that person was acting like before this happened, and what he thinks that person would be acting like now. And it could be very valuable.
I mean, I know they have to move on to other cases, but like, you guys, my concern is where's the Guthrie family and why are they so quiet? Like at this point, their mom hasn't been found. Like whatever relationship they have with the governor, okay, fine, you guys are friends, but I'm just feeling like, why aren't they pleading? Why? I just feel like the urgency for Nancy is like going down. Maybe I'm just being paranoid, but and I know it can take time to find somebody or find their body, but because it's property that's BS, where's Nancy? But like, is it better left to the professionals because they haven't materialized anything? Family isn't making no noise either. Why are they not seen at all? I think it's concerning. Like, honestly, if I was famous or in the limelight, like Savannah or something, like I would be, even if the FBI said no, like at this point, if they didn't have any leads, if say Savannah knows on the back end that there's no leads, like say maybe they're telling her that, but they don't tell the public that. Like if that was me and they told me that, I would want to like continue pushing the case for like to get my mom out there. So I don't know. It's just odd that we haven't heard from anybody, like from the family. And then the ransom notes just stopped like randomly, like nothing after that. I'm just like, what the heck? Hold, please. Okay, I had my heater on like 100 degrees, so it was getting really hot in here. Like there's something to it, says Alicia. Yeah, I feel like there is. Like TMZ was getting like ransom note, and now all of a sudden they're quiet. So they just killed Nancy and like moved on. Okay, I guess that's what we can assume, right? What do they think the kidnapper is just sitting there with Nancy like for however long? That's my point. Is like we have to be realistic. I might. No, I'm not. Why do I look oily? Let me know. Savannah's rich enough to pay the ransom notes, even if they weren't real. Like, did they try to pay it? I don't think so, because the reward was like 50. It was 2,500, then 50,000, then 100,000, and now it's 200,000. And allegedly, like some private PI donated it, which could be someone associated to the Guthrie. So it could technically be them. But yeah, no, the reward's still there. Hey, highly favored. I've been hiding since the beginning. It's almost been a month. Yes. And my question is, does this change your opinion? Like, do you possibly think they had something to do with it? Too much time. I know. I don't want to. I'm not like victim blaming or blaming them. I'm just saying, like, if could that could be a possibility. Too much time and attention on her, not fair. They would not be doing that for any other. They're not going to be doing that for any other person. Someone in my chat asked a good question. They asked if the family hired their own PI. Okay, so like what's going on with that? And then maybe the family doesn't want to work with Pimas County? Question mark. So they're doing like their own thing, but the family can step in and ask the FBI to take over or no? Or is that like something law enforcement like decides? Couldn't they be like, and if they can, I wonder have they done that? And if they can't, well, that sucks. They're stuck with nanos. Can I state tinfoil hat and stuff in this chat? Like what? Say what you gotta say. We do practice our First Amendment rights here. Hey Benji, I don't know, guys. That's what I thought would happen. Tell that fool to step aside. I don't think the families can boss them around like that, can they? Like, oh, okay, we're over Pimas County, like have the FBI take over. We've kind of already looked at, okay, let's just be honest. We all kind of thought Tommaso had something to do with the Annie. Some people thought Annie. Some of us even thought Savannah. Some of us thought the bandmates. But like if they already got looked into and they're close, why aren't they being arrested? Like ATS said, it's going to be almost a month, which we're being impatient. I know some cases can take longer. How long did it take to find Gabby Petito? I think the sheriff has to hand it over. So it's not something that the family can decide really on. Didn't she have medical issues? Yeah, no, for sure. She had a pacemaker and everything. Something's not right with the guy at the doorbell and the glove found. Yeah, remember I said in the last live that I think like I'm starting to think the guy at the doorbell month or so, right, for Gabby. So maybe we're about there, you know? The sheriff is dragging ass for his dumb reality show. I don't know. And like, is it going to be like a big elephant in the room this whole time? Like, when is Savannah going to see anything? Like, what if they don't find Nancy? Like, they're just going to like let it just be a case? Like, are people just going to move on? Like, is Savannah never coming back to the Today Show, never going to address it? Like, if they air the case on the reality show, I'll lose it. They better not. And they said they will keep searching for her even for months and years. When they said months or years, that really made me think like they have no idea. That they have like no idea. Famous mom goes missing and you're doing a TV show. Yeah. Let's watch this Brian Enton clip. The FBI won't let it go. I hope not.
In people who are searching for the person responsible. The other really interesting thing that I've thought a lot about and I haven't gotten into much until I talked to Jim in this episode is, could this be a obsessed Savannah Guthrie stalker who is responsible for this? And how seriously are investigators taking that potential?
I think that's a fair thing. We've talked about that before. Like, is it someone who's obsessed or is it someone who has like anger towards her or like revenge or an enemy? But even so, like, hi Debbie, even so, like, wouldn't we, maybe that's why Savannah's not out in the news, like, because maybe it is someone who's obsessed with her. I mean, we just don't know about it. I mean, I guess it could be a possibility.
Option. And I mean, could they be going through Savannah Guthrie's emails right now behind the scenes? Are they working with NBC? all of that seems like it's a real possibility. So I'm going to get into all of that in this episode of Brian Ensign Investigates. I'm joined now by Jim Fitzgerald.
Thank you, beautiful Vanjie. Love and appreciate you. Sending lots of love. Is Joel with you? Hi, Joel. Tell Joel I sent him a heart. Thank you, Vanjie. I really appreciate you. Thank you for that super chat. Love you. Hey, Jen. I don't know if the show is Nanos even on the reality show. If he's not on there, I wouldn't worry about it. But if he's trying to be on there, Justin says, could you explain why so much effort is being made for the family? Is it race or is it financially motivated? I thought it was financially motivated, but now I'm thinking no, because if it was financially motivated, maybe both, maybe all of the above. But if it was financially motivated, wouldn't they keep sending the ransom notes? Like they just stopped. They were just like, okay, we're done. Fourth one, and that's good. Is that weird? Like if it's a kidnapper who wants money and wants something from Savannah or whoever, why would they just like stop? Isn't that kind of odd? Like, was that pretend? Were those even real? Those ransom notes?
Harold, I really appreciate him coming on. He's a former FBI profiler. He was the founder of the Forensic Linguistic Studies at the FBI, host of the 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆 podcast, which you can see the logo behind him. I really like your logo, by the way, Jim. And also author of the...
More than the fourth one? Really? There was another one? Okay, at this point, when did that happen? Let me look it up. You could be right. I didn't keep up with it for one day, so I don't see that though. I think there was just 4. Because there was one. TMZ needs to wait, what does it say? The 6 million through a series of complex steps involving media triggering certain actions, describes in graphic detail what will happen if the ransom is not paid. That was 3 days ago. Fear of getting caught. Who has the most to gain? Who in the family gets her estate? I think he's saying regarding attention on the case, this case, race or money. Yeah, both. Both for sure. Or am I dreaming? I don't know, Evie. At this point, we're probably all just dreaming. You guys, could this really be a distraction from the Epstein files after all? It looks like kidnapping might just be a disguise for something else. Oh yeah, Debbie, you're in my head. I didn't know there was 4. Yeah. There was 4 altogether, I think, with the ransom. I think the first one was real. The second one was the imposter that got arrested or whatever. And then there was a third one. And then a fourth one. Yes. Absolutely could be. Okay, I know this is going to be like sound crazy. I'm like back to square one. If it's not the distraction from the Epstein files, I do think someone in the family can be involved. Because at this point, if they got away for this long, it has to be somebody who like knows maybe. I feel so evil saying that, like that's even a possibility, because they probably are really upset about their mom. I would be too. I don't think it's a distraction by the government on purpose, but I do believe the media made it one. Yep, anything to keep us distracted. I said that too, Melly, inside. And if it was just a burglary, like gone wrong, okay, so they didn't take anything when they were there. 1, nothing at all other than Nancy. 2, if it was a burglary again, if it was based on the financials, then why did they just stop sending? They haven't heard. There's been no ransom note since the last one from TMZ, the fourth one. So they're just taking a break from sending one. Like they got tired, the kidnappers, from sending ransom notes. Like, I don't know, my opinion, I don't believe it has anything to do with Epstein. And you might be right, Elijah. Like maybe it does have nothing to do with Epstein, but
book's A Journey to the Center of the Mind. And it's a privilege to have you on the show, Jim, just because the phase that we're at now, I've been thinking a lot about who this person is, you know, who's responsible for the Nancy Guthrie disappearance, but also what they're like right now, like trying to get into the mind of someone who has essentially gotten away with this for now. Like, what are they doing? What are they acting like?
Oh my gosh. I haven't even seen this, but I feel like Brian he's going to talk about what I just asked. I'm like, what is the kidnapper doing at this point? Just sitting there and having a coffee with Nancy every morning? Like,
I'm curious what your profile is on this person.
Well, again, Brian, thanks for having me on the pod again. I do appreciate it. And just a little bit of background in the profiling unit. I was there. My first case as a profiler was 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆, and I got sent out to San Francisco supposedly for 30 days, and I helped rewrite the profile that John Douglas did because the manifesto would come out, and that was a valuable tool that we put out there for people. And in my days in the profiling unit, you know, when the 9/11 happened, I mean, the pilots were all killed, of course, but we're still putting behavioral characteristics out there of, you know, who were their adjacents, you know, who was helping them. And certainly in order here, the anthrax case, DC sniper case, we put profiles out there, and a bunch of little cases, you know, for individual cities of serial rapists and you know, killers. I'm surprised I don't see this from my former unit right now. I'm surprised it's not out there. So my Cold Red co-host podcast, Ray Carr and I, and he wasn't going to be here with us today, but he has some family issues he's handling. We put this together over the last few days. And let me go back again. I like to deal with an historical perspective. The Brown University shooting in December, Ray and I came up with a profile because no one else was putting anything out. And we were just about to go on our podcast. That was, I think, Thursday afternoon, late afternoon, and everything broke in the case. The guy was identified up in a security building of some sort, storage building, and it was resolved that night. So, but it turns out the profile we put together was pretty much right on the money. So yeah, that's what we like to do here. And I have a lot of experts have been out there, and me a little bit. What does the DNA mean in the camera? 41 minutes, you know, this differential. That's all important stuff that the investigators are certainly discussing. But what Ray and I always like to say, a week after a big case like this, we need to get the public involved in this. What for them to look out for. And you know, the video is great. Anybody, you recognize it, you know, the mask, the backpack, the silly sort of gun.
hey, Calissa. Hey, Anton. Hey, Rudy. Is it okay? I haven't watched it, so I'm glad.
Holster that I was not familiar with, you know, shoes, boots, anything like that. But there's also behavioral characteristics, and that's what Ray and I decided to put out, because that's what we did back in the profiling unit for the whole 12 years I was there, from the mid-90s to the 2007 when I retired. So without any further ado, we broke it into two categories for this case. Again, the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, and I'm just calling it an abduction, and I know Ray agrees with me and everything we put together here. And it was either for revenge purposes, and there's multiple categories of that. Is it possible it's a for-profit kidnapping? They're the rarest of the rare in this country. Lindbergh baby, you know, a couple in the early 90s, Frank Sinatra Jr. in the early 60s. If this was a successful abduction, whether you look at the guy's jittery behavior at the Nest camera, whatever, he still got away with it. As you said early on, it's been successful.
Yes.
If his attempt or their attempt was to do a for-profit kidnapping, they've done a poor job at that.
Literally what we just said.
I believe at least some, if not all, of the ransom demands coming into TMZ, whomever, they're opportunists. They're coming out of, they're the Nigerian prince people out of Africa, they're Eastern European scammers,
wow.
or somewhere in the US, who knows? But if this abduction's successful, to summarize the crime itself, kidnapping not successful because there's no proof of life. Every kidnapper knows you have to send some sort of proof of life, and where a watch may have been sitting in a bedroom somewhere, that's not enough. You still have to show your kidnappee is alive.
He's so right. Like, I told you guys, they wouldn't just send stop sending ransom notes. Hey Wilson, thank you. I appreciate you very much. Isn't I-40 paying late AF for dropping an 84-year-old? Yes. I would punch someone. To me, I don't condone violence, YouTube purposes. To me, that seems odd, but that's based on my father who's 83. He goes to sleep whether he wants or not around 7:30, just being tired. I don't want to judge people because I'm no one to be judging. But yeah, I've said that a long time ago. Like, what the actual was Savannah thinking? And Annie, I guess more so Annie, if Annie was responsible for her, or AKA watching her. What I did hear, guys, and I don't know if this is true or not. Thank you, Wilson. I appreciate you for that super chat too, by the way. I might have saved it on my ex. Let me look for it while we watch this video. But I saw something that like Annie they did have something to, or Nancy did involve Annie in something financially. Let me find the post. But then I'm like, okay, well, again, though, they cleared the family, right?
So
in the post.
when we do these types of behavioral characteristics, it's not really a profile, we say. It's what we break it down as to pre-offense behavior, post-offense behavior. And what I tell people in this case.
Okay, I found it. It says, why haven't Nancy Guthrie police told us that Tommaso and Annie, oh, that's what it was, not financial, official caregivers. They didn't tell us that. It says, why all the secrets? Why are they being protected? It says Zach Lind, Jimmy Eat World drummer, whose wife is Nancy's Guthrie niece, posted about Annie Guthrie and Sione on February 4th. Oh, I don't get it. So there's like, Nancy's niece? Tommaso Sione is the husband of Nancy Guthrie's. Okay, Annie. It appears that the LinkedIn account. Okay, that doesn't matter. That's just where he works. But it says Tommaso and Annie were the official caregivers, ? Did we know that? I guess we kind of did, right? They have the power of attorney to which could complicate things.
Look at the video. Look at the size, the shape, clothing, all the things we discussed already. And then take in these characteristics, which are proven over time. And we've had a very good percentage rate with, going back 25 years, John Douglas and Bob Ressler and people like that before I was in the unit. And these are what these people do. We've interviewed serial offenders in prison, and we know this is how they behave. And we've interviewed them afterwards, even other during interviews and interrogations when they're first arrested, and they gave us this stuff. So let's start with pre-offense behavior. Now the kidnapping was the early morning of Sunday morning, February 2nd. So this is going to be the week before, but again, it could be extended longer, shorter. If you've lived with someone, a neighbor, a son, a colleague, coworker, whatever category, here are some features you're going to see about this person before the crime. Unusually distracted and aloof, inordinately busy, but for unclear reasons, self-absorbed, more internet time than usual. And if you happen to see some of the things he's looked up, they would be unusual factors. Maybe about Savannah Guthrie, maybe about kidnappings, etc. Purchases of odd materials, and we've seen the video, we know what some of those are. Perhaps financial issues, real or imagined, but again, I'm not sure this is a for-profit motivation here, so just keep that as a possibility. He would possess some sort of a abduction kit, and I put that in quotation marks in my notes, much like the backpack scene in the video.
So what was in the backpack? Guys, why go there with a full backpack? Was it a parachute? Like, what was it? Like I said, if he was there to steal something, he'd go with an empty backpack so he can put shit in the backpack? Question mark, question mark. Because listen, if I was there for money or something, I would go for the jewelry. Grab all of Nancy's jewelry. Right? Or no? Like, unless she had like a safe with cash in there or like under the mattress, you know? Because what else can you get there worth money? For planting false evidence. Aha. Could it be possible that there was blood in the backpack? Yeah, they're super late for a drop off. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, I got distracted with that. But yeah, Wilson was right. Like, that is really late, and there's no way. Sometimes when I met my parents really late, and it's like dark, and I don't even let my mom like go outside with me and walk me out of her own house. Like, I'm like, nope, stay inside. Sorry, and it's like 8 p.m. Maybe a tarp to pull her out on and duct tape. From what I recall, the power of attorneys between Annie and Tommaso, it's pretty standard when you aren't legally married. It allows both of them to make financials for each other legally. Metals, gold and silver are through the roof. Shocked they didn't take any. They didn't take anything at all other than Nancy. That's why I think it's personal. But why take a backpack that's full unless his extra clothes and blankie? Yeah, exactly. He's like got his toothbrush in there and stuff. He's like, let me go in there for 41 minutes, because who's going to hang out in there for 41 minutes other than it's somebody that knows her? Maybe Nancy was tied up in there. I don't know. Who was in there for 41 minutes? What, was like Nancy taking a bath and they were putting her jammies on to like go night, go sleep somewhere else on a little vacation? No, dude. Like, a person who was going there with intentions of hurting someone or malice, they would have knocked at a Nancy and just, you know what I mean? Yeah, which one is it? I don't know. Where's the getaway car? Nobody's seen anything. It's like aliens. I don't want to hear the next thing I don't want to hear is this was connected to the UFO thing going on, all right? I want to hear that shit. That's what the sheriff is telling us. Like, he took a shower. They had dinner. They're like, let's have a little snack before we leave. What did they do? So Tommaso dropped her off, or did Annie? They didn't. Well, listen, I think Thanos said it was Tommaso, but then I think he retracted it and said that they weren't sure or something. But apparently, sheriff discrediting UFO abduction. I mean, at this point, you guys, anything is possible, right? I thought he said we can even go back to the first press conference, because in the first press conference, I think he said it was Nanos, or not Nanos. Maybe it is Nanos who has Nancy. I'm just kidding. That's fucked up. But well, I wouldn't be surprised anymore in this world. Anyways, but in the first press conference, I believe Nanos said it was Tommaso. Come on, let's not throw in the UFOs. Maybe Nanos was going to say that next. He kept retracting. That's what I'm saying. Okay, but also I saw this post on X and it was like, where is Tommaso? And it was like, he hasn't been seen since allegedly he dropped her off. He just like disappeared off the face of the earth. I'll show you the pic too. Which is true. Look at this. Enough of this BS story. Where is this guy? Last one to see Nancy. Drove her home. I don't believe the timeline. They said it, not me, but I'm kind of with them. Yeah. Let's look at the comments. I know people are vile on X. He went away for the Olympics. There's a lot the public doesn't know. I think it's pretty much what we're thinking, you know? He has been MIA. The last sighting was him and Annie speeding away from the media. There's no way he could clear the family. He doesn't have a suspect in sight. I'm telling you, this guy, there's a link between him and the people that got her. A lot of people have said that. They're like, maybe it was, one of his bandmates. Somebody said it earlier. Who was that? I know one of you said it earlier in the chat. Also, this was an interesting picture. Investigators have not ruled out the possibility of accomplices, and if viable DNA evidence was left behind, IgG data could provide investigative leads near the future. Here's Annie and Nancy. Let's see what the comments say here. Is this picture from the last night she had dinner at their house? No, it was at Christmas time. Her right cheek looks red. What did they do to this poor woman? I don't see that. Yeah, I am stuck here too. Remember the other night when we were looking at they reported her missing on January 31st. But she allegedly wasn't missing until February 1st in the morning. So I think that the reason I think they already knew she was missing on Saturday. And I think that that's why Savannah called the governor. And I think there's something going on there. And I think they lied, but I don't know. Savannah called Mark Kelly first. That's the governor. It has been 3 weeks since Nancy Guthrie was dropped off at her home and later abducted. Investigators have ruled out the possibility of accomplices, and if viable DNA evidence was left behind, IgG data could provide this in the near future. Anyways, let's go back to that video we were watching. So sad.
And again, serial rapists have.
Wait, let me see what you guys said. Abuelitas, HWC, couples, Wilson, the PD themselves, we know they were searching the property. They were tossing their gloves all over the ground. Melanie, have you seen someone said the backpack is open when it shows it from the back? Wait, the night that the perp is there? We'll go back and watch it. When the pics are compared, it's shocking. No, he was cleared. By who, nanos? You guys, we cannot trust nanos. I'm sorry. Who knows what valuable evidence was trampled over, ignored, or destroyed? He would be the last person to see her. Is there a bolo on him? Apparently, they allegedly, says Abuelita. Allegedly. Everything is allegedly. Regardless of what happened, we can confirm that the sheriff's yeah, they fumbled it. They're trying to purposely confuse us. Are they protecting someone, or are they just over it? Like they're like, okay, we didn't find her, and then the family's not pressing them? Question mark. That's weird, because if that was my mom, I would be pissed. LA searchers tossing the gloves was negligent. A complete mess. You guys, there was no crime scene up ever at that house. Does anybody think that's weird? Like, even when the blood was there, they didn't even seal it off. That seemed really weird to me.
Rape
I don't know,
kits,
maybe not.
Serial killers have kill kits. This would be an abduction kit. And you can imagine some of the common sense things in there, but you wouldn't just see a person carrying a bag with these kind of things in it every day. And they would include, it could be in a box, in a bowling bag. I think BTK, Dennis Rader, had it in some sort of a bowling bag, all these types of items. But obviously tape of different varieties, duct tape, electrical tape, masks, restraints of some sort, rope, wire, tools, that small flashlight, which is sort of distinctive, the bite light, I think they call it, and other items related to that. And lastly, again, pre-offense behavior. If you know maybe a little bit better than maybe others would, he's obsessed with one or more female celebrities and or high-profile women. So, of course, one of them would be Savannah Guthrie, but sometimes if there's any kind of a stalking element to this, he could have other women out there that he was fascinated or obsessed upon. But for some reason, because maybe Savannah Guthrie herself wasn't available, her mother was, and he has a familiarity with the Tucson, Arizona area. So, Ron, I can hold off there on pre-offense behavior. I'm going to go into post-offense next, but do you have any questions about what I just said?
So when you said upset, so do you think it's someone who was motivated maybe by an obsession with Savannah?
I'm certainly not ruling that out. When I was in New York as an FBI agent, I had a close connection with the head of security of NBC.
I think that's a reasonable theory, but I don't know if I think that's the case here. Not so much obsessed, but maybe revenge, maybe angry at Savannah, maybe wanted to get back at her for something, or maybe Savannah knew something that she wasn't supposed to know. I don't know. And I know people think they're purposely screwing up, but it's probably more likely they're just not a good team. This is one of the strangest cases I've ever seen. Like, this has gone on way too long. Don't you think? Yeah, that's what we're saying. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't know. Like, are we people who have been covering it? Like, do we continue to cover it even though they don't give us updates? Like, you know?
You see, about
is that what they
times
want?
a year, he'd contact me. Hey, another one of our female journalists or, celebrities, whatever, TV people is being harassed by this guy. Can you check it out? And it was outside of New York. He would have handled it with the NYPD. He was retired NYPD. But since there are other parts of the country, I would maybe I would interview them if they're somewhere in the New York area, but I'd also send leads out. So a lot of female people on TV, a lot of females on TV. And it's different with actors, Brian. Actors look at their fellow actors when they're doing their scenes or their portrayals on TV. The difference with people like Savannah Guthrie and others is they look into the camera. And you get these people that maybe suffer from a condition known as erotomania. And it's in the diagnostic statistical manual that psychologists use for all the different categories. It's basically like a stalker's disease. And it can be men or women. And they're hung up on usually people in power, celebrities, and they think there's a mutual love back and forth. And that's why I'm hoping early on the investigators went into every email Savannah has ever received, probably going back 5 years.
Did they do that? I'm curious. This is more in-house. A person's worst enemies is in thy own house. The union leader said the most department is agreeing to the job. For all of the tension this case has got, it seems bizarre as they would not have more checks and balances to make sure. And then I was thinking, like, okay, maybe it could be someone in law enforcement that knew about the Guthrie family. But then if it was, remember, they say that the characteristics of the perp that was at the door aren't necessarily smart or something a professional would do, which I would think if it was law enforcement, it would be a professional. No? So I don't think it's law enforcement, but this feels in comparison almost like the mystery of the flight that disappeared. Oh, yeah. I have a feeling Nancy's never going to be found.
Some fan who just repeats himself, but somehow it just was never fulfilled. Maybe she sent the 8x10 glossy or whatever the equivalent is today, but that just wasn't enough for him. So I am not locking into this theory. And like I always say about these types of characteristics, I'll remind your audience, not every single one will be 100% right on the money. No profile is 100% perfect. But if the majority of these characteristics are met, and again, looking at the video, some kind of a Tucson connection over the years, current, in the past, consider calling the tip line. So the whole thing with Savannah just can't be ruled out. She is and like I said on the first interview I did, I think, the day after the kidnapping, victimology is what's very important about any type of violent crime committed against a person. And that's a behavioral term for, it's one thing knowing everything about the killer, the kidnapper, the rapist, whatever, but we want to know about the victim. High-risk victim, low-risk victim, all those things. And as it turns out, it's not just, in this case, Nancy Guthrie herself. It would be her extended family. And I'm not talking about them being involved in this crime. Others.
Okay, but if they wanted something with Savannah or Annie or something, wouldn't they have said something? The people, the kidnappers? They would have been like, okay, or the stalker, wouldn't he have got in contact with Savannah? Say it was someone who was obsessed with Savannah. Wouldn't he have emailed her and been like, okay, I got your mom, like, you're gonna have to do this next? Or what? He just wanted to take. Or even send her an email like, haha, I got your mom. Like, because then what's the point, you know? Like, how would Savannah know that someone's obsessed with her? Does that make sense? What you know about the fight, but you believe those videos disappearing back then? Hey, Tippy, this case is going to haunt me, and it's not even my personal family. I know.
Are looking into that. It may or may not be. The sheriff has since ruled them out. We'll leave that where it is. But certainly the connections to those people. And Savannah being the celebrity, the high profile person, certainly worth a lot of money. If there is a financial aspect to this, she has to be considered in terms of who are the people that have been reaching out to her over.
Yeah, but does Savannah know it's someone even obsessed? Wouldn't the gratification, or I guess satisfaction of the kidnapper would be that Savannah know they intentionally took her mom? Like, does she even know it could be someone that's obsessed with her? Like, I wonder if she was getting emails and they just haven't said that or something. I mean, it's just a theory. The family reminds me of an inside job of the little girl, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆. Oh, maybe that's why she had limited videos. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking maybe that's why she's not back at making videos, because maybe it was someone that was obsessed with her and she thinks, I don't know. It's a complicated case.
For multiple years. And I'm sure every one of those persons, their criminal records, and maybe even some of them have been interviewed, or at least try to locate them, has been done by the investigators now working the case.
Yeah, just before we move on, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, them going through all of her emails. That would make sense, because she probably has a lot from fans and maybe even creepy people. But I thought of something else when you were just saying that. You know, in her last video that she did, she seemed like she was almost trying to, like, give the kidnapper sympathy, like almost she was like trying, you know, almost like, we, you know, feel for you, you can still turn this around, almost like she was talking to someone who was obsessed with her, like trying to appeal to that person. That was kind of the sense I got when I first watched it, which seems to sort of go back to your theory here. And maybe the FBI told her to do that.
Yeah, and there's no doubt the FBI, the behavioralists are involved in not putting words in her mouth or on paper for her, but certainly guiding them and advising what to say and maybe what to stay away from. So yeah, there was definitely a shift in her tone and even her agency, so to speak, but to whom she was speaking over the course of the several videos she put out there. And I think you're right there. And of course, as I pointed out, and I guess others did too, but it's certainly the first video, they wanted to humanize her. That's very important in these types of abduction situations. You know, call her by her name, you know, mom, mommy. I think only Nancy only once, mom, mommy, you know, versions of that. So that was very important. They did. Yeah. So they're trying to appeal to different levels and layers of whoever may be holding her, that, you know, she is a real person, a human. She's kind, she's nice. I'm still baffled, and I find it very interesting. I wish I was the one that come up with this, but the fact that Savannah quoted lines from the movie Silence of the Lambs, I found that very, very interesting. I'm not going to put a whole lot of interpretation in that. Maybe subconscious, maybe not. You'd think someone would have picked up on that. I know in the Ramsey, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆.
Oh my gosh. Okay, he mentions the Silence of the Lamb reference. I don't know why I didn't think of this before. Okay, so what if in the ransom note there was a Silence of the Lamb reference? And that's why Savannah responded in that way. Because we all thought that was psychopath. We're like, why is she talking like Silence of the Lamb? Maybe they did reference it in the ransom notes. Remember, guys, we haven't seen these. We're going by what they say, TMZ and law enforcement. The Silence of the Lamb, she references the Silence of the Lamb in the first video. She says, she quotes. Yeah, like some code talk. Yeah, they said reply with this in your message. Exactly. that could be it, because we were like, come on, we all thought that was hella weird that she referenced that. Quoted it. She quoted it. I bet they have a bunch of stuff we don't know about, and that's why we feel so lost.
Ramsey murder never was a kidnapping, but for the first 6 hours or so.
Wait, let's go back. This guy is good.
So yeah, there was definitely a shift in her tone and even her agency, so to speak, but to whom she was speaking over the course of the several videos she put out there. And I think you're right there. And of course, as I pointed out, and I guess others did too, but it's certainly the first video, they wanted to humanize her. That's very important in these types of abduction situations. You know, call her by her name, you know, mom, mommy. I think only Nancy only once, mom, mommy, you know, versions of that. So that was very important they did. So they're trying to appeal to different levels and layers of whoever may be holding her, that, you know, she is a real person, a human, she's kind, she's nice. I'm still baffled, and I find it very interesting. I wish I was the one to come up with this, but the fact that Savannah quoted lines from the movie Silence of the Lambs, I found that very, very interesting. I'm not going to put a whole lot of interpretation in that, maybe subconscious, maybe not. You'd think someone would have picked up on that. I know in the Ramsey, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆 Ramsey murder, it never was a kidnapping, but for the first 6 hours or so with the letter that was received, it was treated as such. In that letter, there were direct references to the movie Dirty Harry and the movie Speed, and I'm one of the first persons to pick up on that. And that was, you know, early in the internet days.
I've never covered that case. Maybe we should. Thank you, Abuelita. Yes, hit the like button right now. If you don't, you're getting spanked. Yeah, we know there's other stuff going on. Didn't Savannah, MSM, didn't Savannah's words seem very coded? Yeah, I thought the whole mommy thing. Celebrate. Yeah, celebrate was one too. This case is bonkers too. Yeah.
And even the movie Usual Suspects is kind of intimated throughout. So it's not unusual for killers, or we'll say alleged kidnappers, to borrow from the media, sort of life imitating art. But it's unusual when in this case, family members are borrowing from art, so to speak. Not bad or not good. I'm not even saying that, but they chose those words. I would think not coincidentally in the long run.
Yeah, I just felt like maybe she was trying to appeal to someone who may be obsessed with her. You know, which goes back to your theory of, you know, it could be like a crazy fan.
Yeah, and look, a lot of your listeners may be young and they may barely remember President Reagan, or even the assassination attempt on him in 1981. And that was by a guy named John Hinckley, who was obsessed with the young actress Jodie Foster. And this is before actors and actresses would be putting their political, you know, stuff out there. And I don't think anyone even knew her politics back then, and maybe even now, I don't know. But stalkers, people suffering from erotomania, will do really strange things. Sometimes they do hurt their actual victims. The actress, I forget her name, but she was in the show, in a mid-'80s show, and she was murdered by her stalker. So the bottom line is these things do happen. And I'm, you know, as a part of me hoping that maybe this is an obsessed fan and he never could get to Savannah and he thinks he has some sort of a connection to her. So he just wants to keep her mother in a room somewhere and have these ongoing discussions with her about Savannah when she was young. And is there any chance she would like me? I know this is way out there in terms of a theory, but I look at the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping in Utah back in the early 2000s. Again, that was sex-oriented, not related to this type of an abduction. But
this guy, I mean, can't be far off either. Like, it sounds crazy, but oh my God, you guys both said Rebecca Schaeffer. Not my go-to either, but I guess maybe they could have Nancy and they're obsessing over Savannah.
That person just wanted to keep that young woman in his possession, more or less, and keep her alive to fulfill, you know, the ongoing fantasy he had about her. And he was doing very bad things to her. I'm not suggesting if that's the case here, it's happening to Mrs. Guthrie, but there are people out there whose brain synapses don't
We
connect
should
like
cover
ours
that
do,
Rebecca case.
and your audience, and then something like this, if they can't get Savannah, maybe this is the closest they can get. So I'm hoping for this sort of possibility, which would mean then maybe Mrs. Guthrie is still alive, but we just don't know, of course.
So let's move on now. So we were talking about what this person may have been acting like before the, I guess, abduction, we'll call it. Tell me now, what should people be looking for in the after?
Sure. And actually, Ray and I, my, again, Cold Red co-host Ray Carr and I broke this post-offense behavior into two parts. And one of it's pre-video release. So again, after the abduction, but like that first week before the video came out, and then after the video. So, so this is the post-offense behavior after the abduction, but before the video came out. And it's basically just a few bullet points here, but altered behavioral activity, especially the weekend of January 30th through February 1st. After that, this person's schedule is modified. He's more often in one place or less often in one place. Missing work, missing family functions, odd late night hours, out of town or claims to be for unclear reasons, and perhaps driving a rental car, but for no apparent reason. Obviously, observable mental strain, sleep disruption, potential for increased substance use, alcohol or drugs, over-explaining whereabouts or created unsolicited alibis, hypervigilance toward police presence, cleaning vehicle interior or interiors repeatedly, disposing of bags, gloves, or clothing, deep cleaning of residence garage, burning or discarding digital devices, storage, media. So again, all the serial offenders we've talked to over the years, at least some of these categories are what they engage after they commit a crime, especially one that goes high profile and is and there's a lot of media coverage. And let me just swing right into the post-offense behavior after the video was released. So take into account everything I've already mentioned, but now I don't think he suspected this, whether he had inside information somehow, some way that the Nest camera did not have a subscription. This may have thrown off, his thought process a bit. So now the video comes out, pretty clear of what he's wearing anyway, and he becomes even more frenetic, nervous, unstable, highly irritable, moving around physically, and even much more so.
That is such a good thing too. I didn't even think of that. Like, can you imagine this person just sitting there and there's like, haha, and they didn't have a subscription? Or is it someone that knew she didn't have a subscription?
In the past week, possibly changes appearance, cuts hair, mustache, grows facial hair, and following the media even more obsessively. Frequent searches online of case updates or suspect descriptions, no doubt following the media, no doubt, Brian, listening to you both on television and digitally and on your pod as we talking right here, monitoring all different Facebook and social media groups, possibly calling tip lines with false or misleading information and posting speculative theories online. And
I know this is like somewhat of a stretch, but did they look into the church people? Like who she was allegedly doing Zoom church things with? Because allegedly she just recently started doing Zoom with her group. I heard that she was physically going to before. I don't know if that's right, but did they, like, all those church people and her neighbors and stuff, like, I'm sure they looked into all of them, right? But could it have been someone in the church group or someone connected to someone in her group that was like the church group?
Possibly discussing the case excessively to gauge reactions of other people. So again, some of these may be right on the money, some of it, once or twice he did this, one or two may not be applicable at all. But as I'm telling you, with everything I've just sort of mentioned here, if you know someone out there in any category of your life that fits at least, 3/4, the majority of these types of indicators, call the FBI tip line. If nothing else, you're going to get,
Wow.
And it's right, you're going to get $200,000. And if it's wrong, that's okay. The FBI is used to getting well-intentioned tips along the way. When I got the Unabomb, in the summer of '95, they had 2,500 suspects. And within 6 months or so, 7 months, you're now the one named Ted Kaczynski. But we had to rule out a lot of those other 2,500
Wow.
that people were calling in. So
I guess we have that to look forward. Maybe Nanos wasn't far off when he said it might take years.
In if these characteristics even resemble a little bit someone you may know. Now I'll end this part, Brian, and we can go into some more Q&A. But people talk about the lone wolf offender, and I really think in terms of violent criminals out there, Ted Kaczynski / the Unabomber was really the last lone wolf criminal, because nowadays everybody is online, some much more than others. So even if you're a loner, kind of living on your own and you're isolated from people, you're not that lone wolf, because you're engaging and interacting with others online, maybe even the dark web, and getting reinforced or learning, or somehow.
Thank you, Lakeside, for being a member for 4 months. Appreciate you. Where is 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗃𝗵𝗄𝗃? Good question. Where is Nancy? A case like this will saturate all tips with agents that have nothing to do with the case to see if a possible tip will lead to an arrest. I appreciate you, Lakeside. Evie says, LOL, I know, Lakeside. I don't. How many agents do they need on this? Like, there's nothing. They haven't said they have anything, any leads. All the leads they've had, they weren't sufficient enough.
Just being supported by these types of sites and information. So yeah, even if someone was kind of a loner, but now they're really a loner, you haven't seen them for like 3 whole weeks, that's a clue. And everything else I said matches up. That's something you may want to then call the tip line and let the FBI know.
So a lot of people have been describing this guy as an amateur just based on the holster and sort of the way he operated and trying to cover the camera with the shrubbery at first. But I mean, he's gotten away with it for this long, despite all of the resources and all of, the federal government and the sheriff's office looking for him. Do you think, could there be a cockiness about him? What do you think is going through his mind in that regard? Do they get more like, oh, they're never going to find me sort of vibe? Or is it more like trying to hide more?
Well, again, I'm a history buff and I'm a student of history, certainly criminal justice history. Let me take everyone back to 1996, the Olympic bombings. And I had nothing to do with the Richard Jewell part of it. I was a brand new profiler, still working Unabomb. But within the next year and a half, finally a guy named Eric Rudolph was identified. There was a few more bombings, including in Birmingham, the abortion clinic, in which an off-duty police officer was killed, a nurse severely injured. We knew within an hour or so, Eric Rudolph was our suspect. So we had a name. We knew he was from Western North Carolina. I visited that area 3 separate times for a week each time, trying to put the profile together, talk to locals.
So then what? We just like sit aside and let them deal with it and just move on? But then what if it just goes cold? Q says, I think we realize kidnappings can take a long time to solve or never get solved. We have all seen it. Yeah. I have to sneeze. But maybe the concern is with how they've handled it from the start. It's an inside job. Again, we've thought that before. Do you have a picture? Yeah, Wilson, we covered him in the interview. Remember, it was a guy whose house they like went into and they like knocked the door down. I'll show you
So may have known him, help, the investigators. Took 5 years to catch that guy. So did Eric Rudolph, did he get a little bit cocky after a while? Maybe. The Unabomber was pretty successful for about 10 different bombings. And then the composite went out in 1987, the famous one with the aviator sunglasses, the hoodie. You can argue didn't even look that much like him, but he then went dark for 6 years. And that was really the first and only clue law enforcement had before I was even involved in the case of who is this Unabomber person. Well, someone saw him outside the computer store, and that's the composite sketch they gave to a police artist. So You can argue this person's overall demeanor and persona and personality would determine whether he's the cocky type right now or whether he's the nervous Nelly type, just to use two kind of unofficial terms here. I just can't profess that. I can tell you this, he's being very careful. And if not doing everything I just mentioned post-offense, he's doing a lot of them to cover his tracks. No criminal wants to get caught. Sometimes, oh, the guy really wanted to get arrested. Unabomber wrote these letters to New York Times, whatever, because he wanted to get arrested. No, no one wants to go to prison for the rest of their life.
Right.
So this guy doesn't want to get caught, and he's being very careful, and he's retracing some steps to perhaps cover his tracks, whether like the Idaho killer of the 4 students actually driving down the street again, checking things out.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows about that? That'd be pretty high risk on the street, relatively small, or I should say, not that well traveled from what I've seen. But he's obsessively following the media, and he's just making some strange, furtive actions that he wouldn't have been doing up to 3 weeks ago. And that's what we're asking people to look for and recognize. Male, probably 30-ish or above, and we're not ruling out a second.
So at this point, I guess they shouldn't be looking at anyone close to Nancy. They should be looking at people probably that had something to do with her, like in January, early January, maybe even 2025.
In person, by the way. But when we give a profile like this, we focus on the main, we'll call them alpha male, but certainly the primary person behind it. And it could be a secondary person involved, and who knows, even a third. But the odds are that the profile or the behavioral characteristics I just put out will mostly align with the person who is in charge of this, whose idea this was, and is basically running the show at this point in time.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about the street, because I've kind of wondered that, like, it's creepy, but like, is it possible that, when we've been out there, he's like driven by or something like that? A lot of people are hung up now, when we're recording this, it's day 21. And you mentioned how long other cases have taken to be solved. There was one new report out today from ABC saying that they may scale back resources the longer this goes unsolved. Wow. Are you concerned at all? Like, could this just, doesn't seem like a cold case now, but do you have concerns about that?
No, if there's any scaling back, we're talking months down the line. And let's hope there's no other incident anywhere in the country that would then draw people off of this case that, of some sort of large, and serious consequence. So there's not going to be a scaling down anytime soon. I would even say for the next month or 2, they may be bringing, certainly the FBI, maybe.
Nancy was on the Today Show like a few times, right? She was like on the actual show, like there physically. And then she's been featured in like clips with Savannah shopping. And I think they did some segment in her home, Savannah's home. And I think like they went out to lunch. Remember that video where they were like drinking margaritas? Yeah, Jen, sit your ass down. Hey, breakfast. Hey, watch your stream last night and stuff. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Bringing more people and maybe relieving others. That's how the Unabomb task force worked. There really was no task force until 1994 when the Unabomber came back with a vengeance and killed 2 people, one in 94, one in 95. And the task force has been put together after he came back. And we were rotating people in and out all the time. I was supposed to only be there 30 days as a brand new profiler, but they kind of liked what I was adding to it, and they kept me on board for the whole time. So yeah, and there's going to be some people that stay there long term, other people in and out. I don't think there's any scaling down of this. This is too important, too high profile to the sheriff's department, as well as other local and federal agencies. So no, they want to get this accomplished. They want to get this. They need to get something. I'm hoping it's not just finding Mrs. Guthrie somewhere, and we'll just leave it at that. No more graphic, but that will be, of course, give us some extra clues. But I still want to remain optimistic here and think this is not just a body recovery, but this is also a rescue of Mrs. Guthrie. That for whatever reason, this person's keeping her alive and engaging with her, at least somehow, for whatever psychologically oriented reasons he is doing so. But it's going to be months before people start getting pulled away. And even then, if another lead comes up, which they'll bring people back in 24 hours notice, and they'll pick up where they left off.
Do you think there's a chance that this is someone really close to to Mrs. Guthrie? I don't know. I know they've ruled out the family. I mean, we did, like you said, we just kind of have to accept the sheriff at his word, even though apparently it's unusual for them to do that during such an active investigation when there's no suspect. But could it be someone close that they're just overlooking, like someone else close? Because isn't that normally the case, like statistically?
Yeah, and along with being a profiler, I'm a forensic linguist and I have a master's in linguistics. So when you even said really close, well, let's define really. Let's define close. So
I actually really like this guy he's interviewing.
Logical definitions we would need here. Yes, it is very likely. And you've talked about it before, and others that have been on the air, the concentric circles that go around. 80 to 85% of homicides are committed by someone known to the victim. That statistic's been around for hundreds of years, going back to Cain and Abel. Go the Bible route. His brother killed him. So. Yeah, so they have to look at every.
Again, many people think Tommaso and Annie are suspects. Yeah. I don't know. I have a feeling it's someone that knows her too. I don't know. I just don't get the Savannah. They're obsessed with Savannah part. I could see it, but.
One there, they have to rule them out. I'm not a big fan of publicly ruling people out. I think the sheriff, I would have been more comfortable saying we're no longer focusing on the Guthrie family, but everyone is still considered a potential suspect as the investigation continues. The sheriff came along and I guess completely ruled them out, and that's fine. They're on the inside, I'm on the outside. They know a lot more than I do. So, but to get to the gist of your question, Brian, yes, this could be someone a little close, really close, adjacently close to Mrs. Guthrie, or certainly the family. Yes, and I mean there are all kinds of what really all of us could be conceivably victims of a loved one being abducted. Not all of us are multimillionaires like Savannah Guthrie, and even if the abductor never really wanted the money, or that was just like a way down the list, if I can get, a couple $100,000 for this, that would be great. It was, there may have been some level of jealousy there that, I don't believe, Savannah was no different than me growing up. And, why did she get, so lucky and make all this money? I'm just trying to think of cases I've known in the past when some people,
we've said that before too. We're like, oh, could it be someone that was jealous that Savannah was the famous one, the successful one, the tall blonde one? Although she could just dye her hair, but tried to use mom as leverage, didn't get the ransom, didn't want to get caught, give mom's back, give all the news coverage, and they were watching. Where's mom's though? When they gonna give her back? They just gonna drop her off at the corner? Definitely jealousy. Haters gonna hate. Oh no, that's what Nano said. Haters gonna hate. I wanted to freaking go through the computer when he said that. So they just gonna drop her off at the local Starbs or something, like corner, the community pool.
I was a police officer in Bensalem Township,
police department.
Suburban Philadelphia. Started in '76. Young guy right out of college. And right before I got on there was the famous Apt family mass murder, ABT. And I didn't work that case. It was like 6 months before I was hired. And here are 6 family members, well, actually 5 family members, one of the girls' boyfriends, teenage girl, and the dog, all killed in the house by gunshot. And there was big headlines in the Philly area before I was even on that department.
And Uber, I didn't think of that.
Who the heck would do something like this? And it turns out the investigation within a few days to a week pointed to a neighbor down the next block, and here 2 of the brothers, and they weren't even the ones killed. They were out that day. They used to tease this kid when he was a youngster, and bully him stuff. Right or wrong, we can discuss that. And this guy, after all these years, said, "I'm taking them out." Killed the family. Now, of course, I'm not saying Savannah was a bully to someone, but there could have been something in their personality that just said, from 20 years ago, look at the Brown murder. And
could it be someone that's mad about Savannah's husband being in the Epstein files? Again, Nancy was very, very political too. Remember, it could be someone from that crowd too. I wonder why they didn't Uber her home since that's how she got there. I wonder why she did get an Uber there. Right? She only lived like 9 minutes down the road, right? Hmm.
Said our profile, our behavioral characteristics that Ray Carr and I put together were pretty close. And we said this guy has a grievance with Brown and maybe others going back months or a few years. I wish I said a quarter of a century, but that's how long people have these grievances they hold. They foment for years. And in the Brown shooter case, a quarter of a century, even longer, with the MIT professor he ultimately killed, going back to Portugal. I think that would have been like.
That makes it even worse. Elijah says she did drive. So why not drive herself if it was down the street? I would have even more questions then. The math doesn't math. The math ain't mathin'. No.
30 years. So victimology, it comes back to that word, and which is really the direct answer to your question. Everyone around that person has to have, around Nancy Guthrie, has to have their own concentric circle, and then everyone and those people's families' lives and other lives, have to be checked out and interviewed. Criminal records, the psychological issues. Well, he's always been obsessed on Savannah. He never misses one of her shows. And that person would have to be focused on, and where were they the night of February 2nd, phone activity, and take it from there.
Yeah, I never thought as much about this until you started explaining it, how much work they must be doing behind the scenes in terms of digging into Savannah's history. I mean, you mentioned even like people from decades ago who might have a grudge against her. I mean, are they just talking to Savannah? Hey, is there someone from when you were in college that hated you? I mean, do they go that deep?
And see, it's much easier with quote unquote normal people that aren't in the media. It just keep it to, her different stages of life, that victim's family member will say, but you don't have millions of people watching you on TV. So they have to do exactly what we just sort of agreed upon. All her friends and families, sororities. I mean, who knows what they're going to look into? Certainly down the line. That's probably the stage they are now, and that's why it's not going to be scaled back. At least I would think anytime soon. And I know they're doing their best on the ground there. And the only ones more frustrated than the family are the investigators. And we can talk about public and media people. I have a couple toes in the door of the media here, and it is frustrating for me too. But no one more than the family, than of course the investigators, and probably some heads butting in there every once in a while. But the bottom line is they're going to check out every single lead they can and get over any personality issues therein, and get this thing done. So that's why you see sometimes late night searches. And why would they be out there at 2 a.m. looking for stuff? And well, maybe because a new shift came in at midnight, working around the clock, and they decided to maybe they have better luck with reflecting type materials that time of night. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and it'll be going on, and every single person as time goes on.
That's a really good question, Wilson. I didn't even think of that. The family dinner, Savannah wasn't there, was she? No, Savannah lives in like New York. It was just Annie and Tommaso at the dinner. I know. So could have something happened? When was the actual last time that Savannah talked to her mom? Was it like earlier that week? Like, has Nancy been missing for a while? Like, do we know any of this information? Oh, wow. Look at that. Hey, thanks, Jen. I appreciate you. Thank you, love. And look who got the membership, MSM. Wow. It's like fate. Shout out to you, Jen. Yeah, I mean, when was the last time they actually did hear from Nancy? What happened at the dinner? Was there a fight? Like, no, one will never know,
That was in contact with the Guthrie family, and not just Savannah. She's obviously the one we all know from her NBC career. But let's look at, people that may know the sister and the brother And gosh, who even knew that the father died, I think, decades ago?
Yeah.
Did he have any enemies? And did somehow someone keep a grudge this long? And maybe
Does the Uber know it was Nancy? Like, could it have been someone else that took the Uber to her house?
it's the son of the
I'm just
person who took
theorizing.
grudge. And these are all the things they have to look at. Just look for that person then who has the activity I just described, pre-offense, post-offense. And that's going to help put everything together too, along with whatever the alleged grievance was. And I used alleged, you say grievance here. You and me, it may not, bother us if someone, said something or looked a certain way, but other people can hold on to this for years and years and years, especially if they see someone get successful in one way or the other. And then it finally, for whatever reason, it just breaks, and they do something like this. So this has to be looked at. I mean, and I'll just, as we're kind of winding down here, could it be some kind of a rando, as the Youngs would say, and just not just cruising down the street that night? Obviously, some pre-planning and preparation, mission oriented, but that would be an outlier. It would violate basically every sort of prior abduction of which we are aware in this country. But you got to look at that stuff too, and that's hopefully where phone records, DNA, things like that will come about.
When we talk about someone obsessed with Savannah and maybe a stalker, do you think they're focused?
Guys, we're like over here, we're like thinking like, oh, Savannah could be someone that's obsessed with her, someone that has an issue with her. What about if it's Annie? Like, what if it's someone that Annie has a grudge with? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, maybe Annie and Tommaso pissed someone off. Maybe I don't know. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be Savannah. And you're right. She could be not liking to drive in the dark. Yeah. I'm sure the law enforcement has checked her patterns of behavior, no? You would have think they looked into that. Gambling debts, there's a lot of at play. Yeah. Maybe it's something that Annie and Tommaso got involved with, or the wrong people or something, and it's statistically someone close. No pageant, right? Like, it could be. I know I'm sitting here thinking like it could be someone that's connected to Savannah, but it could be someone that hates Annie.
On someone from Arizona, because there has kind of been this sense on the ground, and the sheriff has he hasn't said it outright, but there's been this feeling that the person could be from around here.
Yeah, and let me just correct the stalking victim from the mid-'80s. The young actress was Rebecca Schaefer on a show called My Sister Sam. I think Pam Dauber was her co-star, and just a bizarre stalker following her and came to her door with flowers one day and then just wound up, killing her when she basically shut the door on him. So to go back now to this case, look, in the late 90s, I became friends with the TV lawyer pundit Ann Coulter, because she was a victim of a stalker, and was a really strange guy who just wouldn't leave her alone. He knew enough not to quite break the law, but the FBI interviewed him. He didn't stop. We came up with these different plans and ploys to help her. So I actually went and interviewed. I didn't interview him because he was very standoffish when agents knocked on his door and his wife was there. I don't know what you're talking about. I have First Amendment rights, etc. So I planned to meet him in Washington, D.C. on a day off. I said, hey, I'm friends with Ann, and I just want to talk. You're kind of her stalker. I'm not a stalker. And it was just interesting having one-on-one relationship with this guy. There's a chapter in my fourth book about this case. I don't name him, but it just, I know what some of these, especially women celebrities, go through. And I've been on with Megyn Kelly a good bit the last 2 weeks. She's had her own problems. Guy in jail right now who's stalking her, and it's not easy, especially when you have kids, etc. So, so Brian, to answer your question, it's any and all of these categories. And again, I'm not locked into this theory. I want to be careful here. Again, I'm on the outside, like the rest of us are. You're more on the inside than I am, no doubt, right there on the ground. but I'm just basing everything I say on my experience in these types of cases in the past. And I've certainly kept up with them since I retired a number of years ago. So yeah, they have to look at these people.
I would say you're pretty good, sir. You're a profiler. Like,
and it's the rarest of the rare that a stalker would just do something like this with no leakage beforehand, or no, we'll call it pre-offense behavior, but certainly even long-term behavior, in which an email, can you send me a picture? Can you mention my name on the, pull your ear and you're thinking of me at the top of the hour. I've seen cases like this, like with local weather women over.
I didn't think about it either, like an affair. Could that be something too? Like, was somebody having an affair, threats, love?
The years, things like that. And these guys just become obsessed because they're looking right into the camera. Oh, she's talking to me today. And they would, in the old days, videotape them. I'm sure, DVR, whatever they do now, rewatch it over and over. And oh, she's talking to me. Oh, I know when she said that word, she was talking about me. And oh, she wore blue today on that dress is blue. And these are all signals. And they also have, and I'll tell you what else this person has. If it's this type of a stalking, obsessive type person, clearly suffering from erotomania, they have a shrine. They have a shrine set up to her in a closet that maybe no one else has access to. Could be like a big trunk, like a steamer trunk they keep in the basement of the garage. A number of locks on it. They open up and there's pictures and there's maybe souvenirs. There's who knows what else they would have. I don't know NBC. I don't watch any of the morning shows on the networks, but does she come outside, of the studio and talk to people with her mic? I'm not sure how that works. Was he one of the people talking to her on his mic, months ago, years ago, and he has that on videotape. He's, blown up every frame. Now it's not even videotape, but, recorded material. And that's the little shrine they had with this person. So I'm not saying this is an obsessed stalker who took Mrs. Guthrie. Obviously, his goal, you think, would be to take Savannah, but perhaps she's so well protected where she lives and when she travels, whatever, and he didn't want to mess with kids. So, hey, her mother's all over the news with Savannah on, different episodes of the show. Let me go with her, and it's the next best thing. And if that's the case, let's just hope it's a respectful thing, that I really like your daughter. I love your daughter. I just want to talk about her.
No, that's creepy.
And hopefully she can just answer the questions he wants in a way to survive and go from there. Or she could have been put in a ditch an hour after the abduction.
Yeah.
So and it still would have been all those other categories I just mentioned: obsessive stalker. Something happened to Mrs. Guthrie, and now she's out, somewhere where she hasn't been found yet. So these are what the agents are looking for. They're not downsizing yet. They're going to be working out these circles. I'm holding my arms out if you're not watching, as far as you can go to cover every one of these leads, and you'd be surprised how something else comes up. And let's go check this guy out. Boy, he's only been to Tucson, 2 or 3 times in the last few years, but he used to live here, or he had a job here 5 years ago, and then all of a sudden other things come up. Luckily, maybe DNA, fingerprints, something like that, cell tower pings, but maybe someone they can talk to and say, boy, that behavioral characteristics, pre-offense, post-offense behavior. Yeah, by the way, he was acting exactly like that. Then they have a suspect to focus on. Then they can start getting direct evidence from him and hopefully make that arrest and hopefully rescue, I should say, Mrs. Guthrie.
All right, I really appreciate Jim for taking.
Good job, Jim. Very, very helpful. Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, guys. Fingers crossed. Who knows? Not looking too good though. Let's do Brian Enton one more time. He did this short. I want to make sure we don't miss anything.
These updates out every day. I'm going to go through it with you. First of all, they say neighborhood activity. They're confirming that detectives and agents today were back in the Guthrie neighborhood canvassing, which we've seen. No additional details. They also changed the traffic flow in front of Nancy's house because there's been so much traffic and stuff. I showed you that earlier. In terms of gloves, they say detectives and agents have collected multiple gloves from the area, and an analysis is part of the investigation. Specific details about these pieces of evidence will not be shared publicly as this remains an active investigation. We know there's been a ton of gloves found. Resources, they say there have been no changes to resources in this investigation. There may be fluctuations day to day based on investigative leads. Several hundred law enforcement personnel remain dedicated to this case. This will remain an active investigation until Nancy Guthrie is found or all leads are exhausted. For DNA, all evidence from the crime scene and search warrant scenes have been submitted for analysis. It's interesting they say search warrant scenes, so I'm guessing the places where they did the raids. Lab experts are working through the analysis. As with any biological evidence, there can be challenges separating DNA. There are currently no updates regarding the DNA process. The helicopter, remember there was this report yesterday of the helicopter circling around the landfill. They say that that was not related to this investigation. And then this is interesting, private search parties. I've seen some volunteer groups organizing. They say volunteer search groups have inquired about being in the area. Per the sheriff, they were asked to please give investigators the space they need to do their work. We appreciate their concern and we all want to find Nancy, but this work is best left to the professionals. And they say PCSD, Pima County Sheriff's Department, has volunteer opportunities if they wish to get involved. Private property laws apply. It is up to each individual property owner to grant permission for anyone to be on their property. So they don't seem to be sort of encouraging private search groups. So that's the
Not encouraging private search groups. The amount of manpower and resources being allocated to the search is staggering. They're definitely doing all they can. Yeah, I know. Too much media attention. She was massive liability and they had to get rid of her. Oh, for the neighborhood she lives in, there's so many doorbell. They have way more footage. I have to believe they do. If a lot of people attended the church virtually, that seems like that could open the door. You know what, Q, I didn't even think of that. You're right. Find out who lives alone, the house setup, word of mouth, you know, like, oh, her daughter's on TV. Oh, I didn't know that. Someone in the chat said there are several political issues Nancy is tied to. She was due to testify in an insurance case. I need to see that. Allegedly.
He's on the phone now.
All right, Emilio, what's your question?
Yes, Brian. So you were one of the first reporters on the ground during the Brian Kohberger murders in Idaho and the Gabby Petito case. And based on what you've seen, what makes the law enforcement response in the Nancy Guthrie case different from other major missing person investigations you've covered?
Yeah, it's a good question. With Brian Kohberger in Idaho, it's sort of the PR from the police department there was very different than what's happening here in Arizona. We didn't hear much from police or the FBI at all in Idaho. We were begging them for press conferences. We were begging them for interviews, and they were staying quiet. And we were critical of them, thinking that maybe they didn't have a lot of information behind the scenes. Well, it turned out later when we got all the documents, they actually had a ton behind the scenes. They just weren't doing any interviews. So I would say that's the major difference. Let me go to Maureen on this. You remember with Idaho, they were quiet. Do you think that?
Yeah, but if it was a Zoom thing too, it's like anybody could be watching, right?
That was the right tactic, or do you think what the sheriff is doing here with a lot of interviews? He hasn't done a press conference, but he does interviews almost every day. What do you think is the better way to go here?
I'm much more comfortable with the way they handled things in Idaho. As soon as I saw the chief of police in Idaho, I noticed that he had a yellow brick behind him, which means he went to the FBI National Academy. So I figured the FBI was going to be there pretty quickly, or at least he was consulting with them. But I just thought, no matter who they consulted with or whether or not he went to the National Academy, that I thought they did an outstanding job. And you saw where you see something like this really pay out is in the trial. You know, when you protect the evidence and you protect the crime scene and you keep it tight and quiet, you're in a much better position when it comes time for trial. That being said, I think there are things that can come out that are relatively innocuous that you can let the public know, because in a situation like this, I mean, Nancy got ripped from her bed in the middle of the night, and the community is frightened and they're scared. And the same thing was true in Idaho. So they did what they could to quell those fears. But here,
Did she get ripped from her bed though? Was it someone she knew? Maybe she walked out, maybe then they got into it and then maybe they hit her in the head. I don't know. Like, was she ripped from her bed?
it's just, there's just way too much back and forth. And, you know, the sheriff is just on every day. To me, it's just way too much.
Yeah, and the messaging gets confusing sometimes.
Thank you for watching.
No, Chris Cuomo. This clip is, they answered the question we were asking earlier. Can the family have the FBI take over?
What's up first?
Hey, let's start with Gail from Minnesota. She sent us this video. Let's take a look.
I think it's pretty much been established that there is quite a difference between the quality of the services that the sheriff is providing and that the FBI can provide. And so specifically my question is the Guthrie family aware of this, and do they have any control? For example, can they request that the sheriff stand down and that the investigation be conducted by the FBI? Thank you. Bye.
Okay, let me start with you, Maureen, on this one.
I like Maureen.
Do the Guthries have any control? Could they request that the FBI take over?
Well, certainly they can request anything they want. Whether or not the sheriff will acquiesce is a different story. But I would like to address, I don't think that the service being provided by the Pima County Sheriff's deputies is subpar. I think they're doing everything they can, and they're working hand in glove with the FBI. They're all out there pouring their hearts and soul into this investigation. So if there are issues, they're usually at the top. They're usually not among those boots on the ground that are doing the work.
Yeah, it's a good.
We did say that a couple lives ago. Who knows? Because we've been covering it almost every day. But we did say, like I said, maybe it is staged. Maybe all of it was staged. The blood, it's possible.
Point. We've seen the boots on the ground. They're working literally around the clock. Bob worked at the sheriff's office for decades. Do you think, Bob, that the sheriff would give this up? Are we coming close to a point where he would do that?
Brian, I think at some point that bridge is going to have to be crossed. The resources that the FBI provides are exponential.
We need so many. We're missing so many pieces. Like, did they talk to the Uber driver? Did they verify it was Nancy? Was it actually Nancy? Was it someone wearing a coat? Was it someone wearing a mask? Where did they track that phone? If she was in an online Zoom, did they track IP addresses of who is in that Zoom? Because I think they can see the users in there. Like, there's many things we do not know. And I think that's why we're like,
more than what the sheriff's department can provide. That being said, I agree with what Maureen said. The boots on the ground are working their tails off, and they're going to continue to do that. But at some point, you know, there's going to be critical mass for them. The hours they're putting in, the number of people, the other folks in Pima County who bad guys haven't stopped committing crimes. So we're going to have to continue to work hard with the federal partners and see where that takes us. But at some point, I do think that the FBI is going to probably take over primary on this, and it's for the better.
Yeah, we've seen a lot more FBI agents on the ground.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe.
Yeah, almost 30 days later, now the FBI is thinking about taking it over. Maybe they wanted to, but they couldn't. I don't know. You would think the FBI would have more say? Don't know. This one is, how could the kidnapper have gotten into Nancy's home?
Go to Jay. We got him on the phone from New Jersey.
All right, Jay from New Jersey, what's your question?
Hey, Brian, how you doing? Great job on the ground there. I watch the show every night with Cuomo and everything. And my question is, myself and my wife are like dumbfounded by this, is how did this low-life scale get into the house? Was there like any signs of a break-in? Did he use like picks? How did he get into the house? That's nuts. I don't know if you can answer it.
Yeah, it's a good question. There were reports of forced entry in the beginning, and then the sheriff walked that back. Eric, what do you think? I mean, we've seen the suspect at the front door. We have the video up right now, but we don't know that he went in through the front door. What are your thoughts?
No, in the limited information we have, we know that he approached the front door.
I just want to know if that was even Nancy who got dropped off. And I think there was 2 people. One was possibly already there. They're not going to say everything now, Melly. Well, they will never tell us until they make an arrest. Sheriff staged for his new show. Isn't there a silly criteria that the person is taken over state lines, which one would lead to ask, how are you supposed to know if they're kidnapped and now missing? Her family said Nancy often leaves the back door unlocked. That's crazy. Alone, door unlocked, 84 years old, and out in a rural area.
The simplest method that they use is simply to knock and wait for an answer, or wait for somebody to voluntarily open the door, and then proceed to abduct or kidnap, or whatever the case. There would be if there were indications of forced entry, they would probably, be use of some sort of ramming device or some sort of device to compromise the lock. But the easiest form in which these subjects operate is just to knock on the door and to wait till they voluntarily open.
I thought he was knocking on the door, the guy in the camera.
Yeah, it's so scary to think about that in the middle of the night if Nancy woke up and saw this.
They basically said they can request it, Wilson, but they ain't gonna get it. Like, it's basically what they said.
Guy outside her front door. Bob, have you thought at all about if you think there's a second suspect or a getaway driver, or could there have been someone around the backside of the house at the same time?
Yes.
I have thought about that. I've discussed it a little bit, and my gut says there probably was. A car of some sort was involved with the kind of the lack of care that the suspect we see walking up to the front door has. Once they were able to get their hands on Nancy and get her out, it would be a lot easier to have someone waiting for you. So, the cop part of me says, yeah, there probably was a car out front just waiting. You've been in the neighborhood with the lights out, a dark night. No one's going to see that. It's not going to look out of the ordinary at 1 a.m. in the morning. So there probably was, and hopefully that they're following up on all the vehicle leads in the area as well.
Yeah, I wondered the same thing, if maybe the getaway driver was parked a block or 2 away and then got the call to come back.
Thank you for watching.
Yep, I absolutely can agree with that. Jen says, the more I think about it, the more I think it's more of an inside job with whoever did it, knowing everything about how the cameras would be. Yeah. And also, because if you think about it, if Nancy knew, if she saw in her cameras that somebody was walking up to her door, would she not have called 911 on her phone? I don't know. Most rural area has no streetlights.
𝗶𝗍 more on this. And 𝗶𝗍, thank you so much for being here. And you've said that this tool can step in and be successful when all other leads seemingly are exhausted. Does this essentially look like approaching a 23andMe or an Ancestry.com style database, a large commercial one, and then seeing if there are any family matches to this unknown DNA?
Well, as long as you have a viable DNA sample that you can create one that is workable for genetic genealogy from that, then it is eventually solvable. That person can be identified. Of course, there's a lot of caveats right now. Do they actually have the suspect's DNA or not? So that's a big if. As far as the databases, although there are over 50 million people who have taken direct-to-consumer DNA tests, law enforcement is actually barred from the vast majority of those profiles. The 3 largest databases have said law enforcement cannot compare against their databases. So we are actually limited to the 3 smallest databases, GEDmatch, Family Tree DNA, and DNA Justice, with under 2 million profiles to compare against on violent criminal cases like this one. So it can be very—
You guys remember too, she was reported the night before, so they're lying about something. She was reported missing on the 31st. It sounds like Nancy went missing on Saturday night and they knew it. I don't know why they would play out the whole Sunday morning. Oh, or maybe they backdate it because that's the last time she was seen, but I don't know. Something feels off. I agree with you, MSM. Savannah, calling the governor is what's throwing me for a loop. That's what yeah, exactly. Sorry, I had to sneeze. They're lying. She couldn't have heard a doorbell or knock if she had hearing aids out at night. Do we know that she had hearing aids? They definitely knew when she'd be home. I think so too. Or maybe somebody told them, the perps, when she wasn't home. That's what I'm saying. I doubt she would answer the door if someone knocked. Wouldn't she have been sleeping? Yeah, if she was home. The family can request it, but it's up to the sheriff to have it over the family. Yeah. I thought they said that was a typo. Did they? Did they officially say it? I haven't heard it from Pima County. Her hearing aids out. How do you know that? Know what? About the hearing aids? I'm thinking Savannah had a heads up about the local PD, and she was calling in every favor. She's rich and connected. You could be right. I might call the governor. They must be friends. Lots of huge debt. Tommaso, very recent, $30,000 threat of losing their home. Okay, if that's actually true, I need to see the paperwork. But if that's true, then you could be right. That's absolutely motive. Most old people would be home at that time if she even made it home. She didn't. She did have hearing aids. Savannah said she wouldn't have been able to hear. Oh. It's on the website. It's on the Pimas County Sheriff website that they reported her missing on the 31st, not the 1st. But
very difficult. If they were able to get the DNA in those large databases with 25 million people, 12 million people, and so on, then it could be a very, very quick identification. In dead match and family tree DNA, sometimes we get lucky quick, but it can also take a very long time.
I'm so glad you brought up that point, because most of the major firms that use genetic genealogy, the Ancestry, the 23andMe, MyHeritage, they do have those policies to not work with law enforcement. However, some will change that when asked if it's a violent criminal or to identify human remains. With the amount of scrutiny and public pressure on this case, do you believe that any of these databases stand a really good chance of reversing course on what seems like a pretty hard and fast rule and actually opening up their databases to solve this case?
It's never happened to date. And there's also misconceptions about that. It has not happened. I went to these companies back in 2012 and MyHeritage in 2016, asking if they would be willing to have law enforcement samples in their database. And they schooled me very quickly and very assertively about why they did not want that to happen. They don't want to scare off the public. They don't want to scare off their customers. Now that they have amassed these huge databases, they want to protect their customers' privacy. So we can all understand that. However, if a warrant is served on these companies, which I believe it will be either in this case or another case in, very soon, they're going to have a knockdown, drag out fight. I don't think these companies will just fold and agree. I think that they will go into their deep pockets and put up a fight to protect their customers' privacy. One thing, though, I wish they would consider is that the vast majority of their customers think law enforcement is already using those databases. It's one of the biggest misconceptions out there. And one of the reasons I've done so many interviews is I'm trying to let people know if they want to help on cases like Nancy's, they need to download their raw data from those big companies and get them in one of the databases that we can actually access. If those big companies would create a system like GEDmatch has, where you can opt in or opt out, that would really be, I think, the best middle ground. I think law enforcement would be happy to adhere to that, and we would be able to solve cases very, very quickly. And then they wouldn't have to serve a warrant.
That's just such an interesting point. And I mean, in this case in particular, public sentiment so on this side. If they were going to make an exception for any case, you would think it would be this one. You say there are also limitations to genetic genealogy. So you would hope that the suspect, for example, has deep roots in this country, is not an immigrant, their parents are not immigrants, ideally of Northwestern European ancestry. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, those are the people that are best represented in
yeah, look at the blood.
in all genetic genealogy databases. But when you're limited to the smallest ones, it's even more important. It's people who have deep roots in the United States that we are able to most quickly identify through investigative genetic genealogy. People that we can follow that paper trail all the way back to the 1600s, for example. And those are the people that have the most cousins in the database, right? Because their ancestors have been here for hundreds of years. So we're going to find a lot more of those second, third, fourth, fifth cousins and beyond than somebody who was born in another country.
I think he was. I think the perp was checking to see if it was locked when he went up there with the bushes or whatever, the dried flowers. Thank you, Abuelita. Appreciate you and love you very much. 10 months, that's a long time. Thank you, Abuelita. There's so many, appreciate you. There's so many twists and turns in this case. Nothing makes sense. Yeah, all hands on deck. Those DNA companies have cooperated with board, but have not provided the law open access to the entire database. But you would think with this Nancy case that with warrants and stuff,
Even
right?
all the way back to their great grandparents.
Yeah, very quickly, and we're almost out of time. So if that theory of any cartel involvement, whether this suspect could have taken Nancy past the border to Mexico, would that potentially make using genetic genealogy more challenging as a tool in this case?
Absolutely, but it's still doable. It just will take more time and more resources. And that might be when they go ahead and serve that warrant on those big databases, if that were to happen.
Genetic genealogist, 𝗶𝗍.
She's really good. I really doubt it's a family that would have been way easier to get rid of. It's a virtual spider web of clues, not a straight line. It could be a total stranger. Let's see what Trump has to say about this on Megyn Kelly. I guess he made a comment.
I just found this out recently, and the friend of mine who told me will not, I don't think, be upset by this. I found out that someone on the outer ring of my social circle, who I thought who's always sort of pleasant to my face, said to this person we both know, "How can you be friends with Maureen? She's a fascist." A fascist? She's a fascist. I guess, I don't know, because of where I work or because I come on your show.
Oh, is she talking about Maureen? That's crazy. Agree, Melly, but have that gotten warrants? We don't know that. And is that Nancy's blood for sure? Because they reported that on Monday, and it takes at least 24 hours. No, you know how they were saying that they have, I doubt the cartels did it. I remember when they said that they had DNA, partial DNA from inside. I wonder, still, we don't know what that partial DNA was. And yeah, they said that that was Nancy's blood, but now I'm thinking, like, do they actually know that that's true? But I mean, it must be, right? Because then if they had the perp's blood, well, I don't know then, because if it's not in the system, I have no idea.
Show or I work for you. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I just laughed out loud when I heard it because clearly I think this person really believes it.
Right.
And like, that's so stupid.
Yes.
So stupid.
But so fun when you realize how dumb certain people, you know, who have been in your life are that you didn't know. Like, it's a big reveal. Like, wow, okay. But it's just so funny. I would never hold a friend's politics against her. I don't care who you vote for. I really don't. Could not care less, actually. If you want to ask me about my thoughts on politics or whatever, I'll tell you, obviously. I do that for a living. And I'll listen to yours too. I'm not offended by somebody else being a liberal or voting for Kamala. You know, it's not something I would do, but I'm not offended by it. It's only the left. It's just, they're so intolerant. They're so hypocritical. All right, let's keep going. Have you been following the Nancy Guthrie, 𝗶𝗍 𝗍𝗏?
A little bit.
A lot. Okay. Trump weighed in again.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, 2 weeks ago, he was saying, like, we've got it solved. And that,
well, he said, I think some good things are about to happen. And that was the day before 𝗏𝗏𝗆 𝗏𝗆 released that video.
It's ambiguous, if I'm being honest. He said it on a Friday night, and 𝗏𝗏𝗆 𝗏𝗆 released the stuff on a Tuesday.
Okay.
And there were reports that the FBI had just found it, like that day or on Monday, and they released it immediately. So to this moment, I don't totally know if that's what Trump was talking about. I think it is. I feel like they probably did have it and he knew, or maybe they at least stumbled upon it at Google and they had told the president. That's plausible to me, because Trump he actually doesn't, unlike what the left says about him, run out there and say shit that he can't back up. But now that's why I'm more bummed about his current messaging, which does not sound hopeful. He got asked again on Air Force One. This time, I think the last time too, was by Peter Doocy about like, what do you think on the Nancy Guthrie case? And this is where Trump went with it yesterday. Here it is, @7.
What do you, based on what you've been told, what do you think happened to Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy?
Boy, it's so crazy. It's so bad. I didn't like when they were talking about they're going after the pacemaker and you know, before they even started going after it, they're coming and reporting it. So if in fact they could do it that way, the person would say, well, I'm not going to let that happen, right? So bad things would happen if he not going to let that happen. I can't imagine.
Okay, so he's saying that they basically would like what, unalive her?
Imagine why they would have done that. And just in terms of strategies, one little piece, I don't know, but we have to start reporting on other subjects also and see what happens. It's a very sad situation.
Start reporting. He's like, we need to move on from this case. But I mean by like the pacemaker, because if you think about it, if it was somebody that knew her and that knew that had the pacemaker, they must have known it was traceable. Question mark? But they would be able to identify the race, gender from the blood if it was not Mama Guthrie. Good point. Yeah. I need my drink. Trump is just like, yeah. I need to rewatch that again right now. The blood on the porch wasn't there when the man smashed the camera. That's how we know it happened on the way out. Could it be on the perp's shoes? Why is there no blood on the driveway or anything though? Like if she was bleeding that bad. No, not that I think it, but that blood on the porch could be old. Could be.
Based on what you've been told, what do you think happened to Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy?
Boy, it's so crazy. It's so bad. I didn't like when they were talking about they're going after the pacemaker and
It's so crazy. It's so bad.
And, you know, before they even started going after it, they're coming and reporting it. So if, in fact, they could do it that way, the person would say, well, I'm not going to let that happen, right? So bad things would happen if he not going to let that happen. I can't imagine why they would have done that. And just in terms of strategies, one little piece, I don't know, but we have to start reporting on other subjects also and see what happens. It's a very sad situation.
That doesn't sound so hopeful, Maureen. Doesn't sound like a man who just got good news from 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗆 about where the investigation is.
I've been thinking about this a lot because I've really loathed this sheriff since day one. And I just wish there were, I don't know what the mechanism would be to just remove him and the sheriff's office and just let the FBI run point on this.
Please.
And contain the messaging, because he's no longer giving pressers, but any outlet that asks, he will talk to you. And I was listening to your show this morning about.
We're going to watch his ridiculous interview, his new one right now.
About the amount of times he weeps.
Yeah. Or tries to.
And there's this weird inversion of his level of competence. He won't realize how incompetent he truly is. And his love of media attention. And anybody who had an iota of self-awareness would know, well, I'm in way over my head on this one. I should run from the media. I should let the FBI deal with this messaging because Trump just said something really smart there. They said, we're now looking for the pacemaker. So whoever did this is going to go retrieve that pacemaker and destroy that pacemaker. So strategically, that's pretty idiotic.
Yeah, if Nancy's been killed. Exactly. That's
oh my God, that's crazy.
But is it possible that the pacemaker still emits even if the person is dead? So there's
it does.
Yeah.
Now, not only is it possible, it's probable. They say they do. That's what normally happens. It would continue emitting. It just won't be communicating with the iPhone unless the iPhone's within 30 feet of it. But yeah, it's still sending out a signal. And if you get close enough, you can potentially detect it. But his point is a good one, which is basically, why do we know this? If we're trying to find someone who's in the custody, we presume, of a bad man,
right?
Why are we telegraphing to the bad man what we're doing.
Here's what we're looking for. So you can go hide it.
Yes.
You know, I feel so
exactly. The purpose sitting there, just eating popcorn, like watching all of this. Brian Enton, Nancy, probably watching JLR.
terrible for Savannah Guthrie and her family, because I remember when my dad died, I didn't want to go over to stay with him until first responders got there. But I went and met my brother at the funeral home.
You know who that reminds me of? Dexter. One of my favorite shows. Oh my God. That's my literal favorite show. I'm obsessed. You guys know this. The OGs know this. Dexter would always watch like his own, you know, because he was in the police. He would always watch like and keep up with everything. Everything the sheriff knew on Monday does not make any sense. And leaving the house, not a crime scene. Come on. Is that smart to say? Doesn't alert them that the Fed's looking for the pacemaker. So then if she has a pacemaker and they've been looking for it and it's not signaling, then she's not close. Unless they took the pacemaker out. Unless the timing is not correct that the family gave to the police. Ding dong. Bing bong. That's what I'm saying. I've also heard that an Uber drove Nancy home. Is that, yeah, that's what we said earlier. We said, has the Uber driver been interviewed? Do we know who he is? Does the Uber know who ordered the Uber too? I'm curious, just wondering. And then also like, was it an actual female? Like, does the Uber remember that? Could it have been a man? I mean, I've gotten into an Uber before and not talked. And if they asked me my name, I would be like, yes. Do they know for sure it was Nancy?
And I remember the first question I said to the funeral director was, where is he? And it shocked me. I never thought I would think that way about someone I loved who was dead. I should know logically. They came and they took him away and they brought him to the funeral home. And she said, oh, he's here. He's in the other room. And it was only, that was a key thing I needed to hear so that I could begin really grieving properly.
Mm-hmm.
And I fundamentally understood in my bones in that moment why the families of the missing and the dead spend their entire lives trying to find the remains.
It's tortuous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they may never know. And it's sad because like the news cycle around the story is drying up, clearly because the police are either running out of leads or have finally decided to stop sharing them.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, the media does disappear.
Mm-hmm.
That's natural. That's the way news works. And when the media disappears, so does the pressure on the police. There will no longer be 400 law enforcement officers on this case when the media packs up and leaves Tucson. There will not.
Mm-hmm.
And so for all this, like this, once again, this local congresswoman, she's an Arizona state representative who continues every day to shame the media for covering this case.
What?
She's very mad at the influencers who say whatever they want. You know what? All you need to be saying is thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for being here and calling attention to the Nancy Guthrie case. Thanks to all those influencers you're shitting on. She's a household name. Okay? Like it's not because NBC does one report a day on the Today Show on Nancy Guthrie, and their ratings are a shadow of what they used to be. Their show is actually not that well watched. It's the collective that's making her a ubiquitous household name.
Yep.
And what we don't need is to shame the media who's now feeling like, do they even want us here? Like maybe we should peace out of here. Like when there's no longer any reason to, and they're not getting daily news updates, they will leave. And then they're going to be really sorry.
They will leave. And the other thing that's so key about this is the outlets that regard themselves as more august and above this kind of reportage, you know, the New York Times, et cetera, the way they covered this story or covered it, I don't think they're covering it as assiduously anymore, is why is the media so obsessed? You know, they turn it into a meta story and they remove the actual heart of the story, which is that a woman who is the mother of a very famous person in America was abducted from her bed in the dead of night. And it's terrifying and nobody has a lead. And instead it's like, what's wrong in the American psyche? What's wrong with all the little minds out there?
And then you know what comes right after that?
What?
Why don't they do this for Black people?
Oh, right.
That's the next thing is they only do this for a privileged white lady who lives in Tucson. It's like
on stolen land.
Let me tell you right now that I don't know if Hoda's mom is still alive, but if 𝗏𝗏𝗺𝗵's mom, God forbid, something like this happened to her, they'd cover it just as much.
Holy shit. You know what? So I was talking to Rob Shooter the other day, and he had this amazing report that Don Lemon took out extra security for his mother.
Nobody wants Don's mother.
No, but he wants people to want. Excuse me.
Wow.
He wants people to want his mother so that he can get this kind of media coverage.
Did I tell you? So I talked to my mom about security. I'm like, Mom, just FYI. And I let her know a couple of things. And I did worry that she might be a little worried. And she found out that we were going to be taking a look at her. And she was so excited. She was like, I can tell all my friends. She wants to be in danger. She wants it's like, haha, people want to get me, but they don't. It's not true. It's just my mom. She's very funny. Gotta love Linda. International disputes.
That's wrong. Keep all moms safe. Yeah. Weird. Nanos gave an interview to NBC. You guys ready to watch it? We haven't seen this one. I love that they can cuss on social media. Abuelita said I don't like her. She's a spoiled brat. Megyn Kelly's making friends, huh? Said Alasia. They want people to keep this interest active. But it seems like I mean, even JLR said that the people, boots on the ground, are like, it's like, they're like leaving. Let's watch Nanos.
First, I mean, we can start with that if you want. I wasn't going to, but we can. What do you want to say to, how do you respond to this report that says that you are not working with the FBI and holding back evidence?
I have not heard that, Sue. I didn't know that. I didn't hear that.
I've said from the beginning, and actually even at our last press conference, the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department are
He took off his disco shirt. Oh, this guy. Bless his heart, but not bless his heart.
connected at the hip.
I can't stand
that has
them.
not changed. Decisions are made sometimes with a good discussion about why things need to go one way or the other. In this instance, it really was about, and it's not just this. We're going to use a judge for a search warrant. Do we do a federal judge or do we do a state judge? We have a discussion. What's the best way to do that? And the decisions are made. They're really not my decisions. They are our team's decisions. They get together and they talk about what they think is best. In this case of blocking evidence from the FBI, that's just so far from the truth. What happens is we processed our crime scene, took all of our evidence. That morning, it wasn't days later that we contacted that morning, we contacted the FBI. We said, hey, we've got some digital analysis that you guys could really help with. They said, Sheriff, whatever you want. We gave that to them. The rest of the evidence we sent to our lab. This is a lab we've been using for 30, 40 years now. They may be in Florida. Maybe they were in Phoenix at the time we got them. I don't know that. But this lab is, again, so many corporate companies have come to us and said, Sheriff, tell us what you need, pro bono. They're not charging us anything. So the $200,000, I have not a clue. But what I would tell you is
Thank you.
The FBI
-1.
sit down at tables and we just
Thank you, -1. You subscribe good. YouTube is the new media. Yup. Have one, Alicia.
Discuss things. Hey, I've got this mission up in Rio Rico. We've got a search warrant. Who should we do? State. We've got a SWAT team. You want our SWAT team, their SWAT team. There's no egos there. We sit and discuss what's the best option. The DNA. If you had, God forbid, something happened in your home, we're going to go and process it. We're going to take markers and get profiles on what we believe could have DNA. But we're also going to take buccal swabs of you and your family and your friends that have been there to eliminate, right? So in this case, all of that evidence, day one, went to our lab. We now come back 10 days further, there's gloves found. So FBI says, okay, so should we send them to the FBI lab? I said, no, let's send it all to our lab, because why would you want to have evidence over here and all the markers, if you will, for elimination over here? It's just adding a step to it. Let's just keep it all in one place. Our lab does good work. Their lab does good work. They both are capable. Let's just to eliminate that. Okay, this lab has, we've got a marker. Can you send us your eliminations? or vice versa. Can you send us yours and we'll eliminate for you? It doesn't make sense. It's just we talked to the FBI. They said, yep, makes sense. Thanks, Sheriff. And we move on to the next problem.
So you're basically saying this is maybe one person that had a problem with it, but you feel like,
you got 400 officers out there working together. They're not always going to see eye to eye. Some of them are going to think, and they may be right, but somewhere at a certain level, those discussions are had, and we weigh it out and we keep going.
yeah. Are you not share? Are you sharing the results?
Everything
with FBI?
Absolutely, and they are with us.
Okay.
The videos.
Okay.
That came from their submittal to a company. They came back, they share it with us. People thought, oh, you had those videos forever. I think we had them for about 2 hours, and we submitted them to the media and said, we need your help, because that has really given us quite a lot of leads and advantage on this. And we're hoping we've got some good leads today that we're working on that we hope pan out.
Who is currently leading this investigation?
We are. It is a team effort.
We who?
We, the sheriff and the FBI.
Okay.
We work step in step. John Edwards called me last night. He calls me every now. I call them. I was at their command post the other day when we were in Rio Rico. They've been at our command post. It is really, there's so many leads. They generated 14,000 in the first 10 days. We generated 18,000. We need each other. And that's really, so there's no ego here as to who's leading it. Right now, it is a state case. We're handling it, but we can't do this by ourselves. We know that.
So
we need their help.
Lead agency is Sheriff's Department with assistance from FBI, or
yes, that's how this started. We asked the FBI 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock that morning, when we got done processing the scene, we turned to the FBI and said, hey, we're working this case. This is what we need from you. They said, anything at all, Sheriff, whatever you need. And now it's grown that, well, yeah, like I say, you got 400 cops out there working this.
Did you reach out to the FBI?
Did I? No. No, my team works with them all the time.
Okay, so the Sheriff's Department reached out. I think that was part of the report, that it said that like you guys didn't reach out and they reached out or something.
Yeah, I believe our team, after I got a brief, they said, yeah, FBI's going to help us with this. Well, great, and we'll do this, and we'll work. And once it got going, the FBI, Department of Public Safety in Phoenix, Tucson Police, our regional team, everybody said, Sheriff, what do you need?
Okay, I'm going to ask you about those gloves. You said
the sheriff is such a prick because there's this post too. It says the sheriff caught wind of search parties forming to come look for Nancy, so he decided to put up barricades and traffic cones up to make Nancy Street a one-way, and announces his deputies will be the one canvassing the area, though no one on the ground has seen any of them canvassing the area, because leave it to the professionals. Where's Nancy? It's true, they did do that. They did. They put up, I think it was earlier today or yesterday, if I can't remember, right? The case is getting darker by the day. It's been 3 weeks since Nancy's been missing.
how many gloves were found?
I can't give you the numbers, but we found the first pair, I think.
Wait, so it wasn't 16 gloves? Because that's what you said first.
Was a search team that went out. What? FBI, deputies, everybody, about 2 miles away. There's been some reporting that there was a glove in that is no. There's
no
never,
glove in the house.
Never was found a glove in that house.
Okay, was there a glove found closer to the property?
2 miles away is the closest we have.
And that's one pair of gloves.
One pair of gloves.
Hey, Robert.
Is there another pair of gloves?
There's a lot of gloves.
How many gloves?
We go out 5-10 miles, and as you expand that search.
It was today. Thank you.
That's a lead we got.
I can't stand. I'm glad we all feel the same about nanos, because I'm over here like, shut the fuck up, nanos. It was today they made the street one way. Thank you. Thank you. I can't stand the sheriff. Yeah. Abuelita's like, he's lying. There's absolutely no reason for a Pima County Sheriff should be leading the investigation. They got mad when a Hispanic group of women decided that they wanted to search for Nancy. Can you imagine it? They can't find her, but then they get mad that people actually care to look for her. People who have nothing in this, no money, no channels, like, that's when I think they're hiding something, because why else do that? Yeah, he is trash. People don't realize that the sheriff's department supersedes all authority. FBI is not allowed to take over unless unless formally invited by the sheriff. Exploring with Jim. Yeah. Turn the oven off when you're done. Oh.
And we went with that lead.
Me?
I don't want to tell somebody, well, don't call us if it's 2.5 miles. We have to go and gather it all. And now it's really growing. But that's part of investigations like this. So you go and you get them, and then you prioritize. Well, this one's about 10 miles away.
Yeah.
Maybe we can hold off on that. Let's do the one that's 1 or 2 miles away. That kind of thinking.
It's not me,
But
that
that's
oven?
all that is it's about all the leads come in. We develop evidence. Leads aren't just phone calls. Leads aren't just interviews. Leads can be from evidence, from things found, from searches, from search warrants served. All of those things develop.
Do you believe that any of those gloves could be the gloves we saw the person in the surveillance video wearing?
You know, that work is being done. I cannot, we would never eliminate it unless there was something that our labs would tell us, yeah, this isn't what you're doing.
Are you looking or interested in potentially a white truck?
You know, I've heard that so again, I can't get into all those weeds. I know that we have gotten a lot of leads, information coming in about vehicles in the area that were concerning. We track every lead down. And so maybe I don't know who's got that, but somebody is working, probably a lead that came in on, hey, this white truck was seen in the area. So, that's not the only vehicle that we've been told about in the area that looks suspicious. All of those things are being assessed.
Are you close to finding this person?
We think we're getting there. We think we're getting closer.
Like what, a day, 2,
Oh, my
3?
goodness,
We're day 13 now.
I know, but you know what? Some of these cases go for months. Some of these cases can go for years. We're prepared that whatever that time is, we're going to continue fighting it. We're going to get there. We will find this person. That we know.
So are you at that point where you think it could go on that long?
I don't rule out anything. It's like I say, these things come in highs and lows. We get a lead, we get really excited, we're way up here, and then something says, okay, that's not the right lead, and we go back down. Now we get another lead, and it's what keeps us motivated. You got all these cops out there that want to find her. And
you need to stay motivated, Nanos. Interesting choice of words. Can Savannah sue him civilly? I think she can sue whoever she wants, right? I would if I were her. Sheriff saying how long cases takes and just solve the damn case. I know. He's like, listen, we do share the information. We're like, you're really still on that? Like, we're 21 days in, dude.
They get excited. I wish you could have been with me in that comm room or that with the FBI and watching all those agents and detectives get all energized and charged up when they thought they had this could be it. And you see their faces and then when they realize maybe not, look, they're tough guys, tough gals.
I can't stand him.
There.
What was it that allowed that court order? What was it that you potentially had on that person in Rio Rico that allowed the court order search?
There were several things there, and I can't get into that.
Oh my God.
Written that person off?
You know, that's the thing is everybody wants to know if we eliminate anybody. You know, you don't eliminate people. What you do is you go and investigate that lead until a point in time where you realize that, okay, maybe there's an alibi. Maybe in this case, we believe he was a delivery man. He was in the area for a reason. Okay, but that doesn't mean we're ending. That doesn't mean he's completely eliminated. What if, and the search warrant, we're processing that evidence. What if that evidence comes back and says,
wait, so now you're saying that Carlos still could be involved? I hope Carlos got a good lawyer. I do. And I hope he watched this interview because that's messed up. You're still putting that on Carlos.
Nancy's DNA was found in his home. Well, that would make you say, wait a minute, we got to go back, right? And that is not the case.
What did he say?
What if, and the search warrant, we're processing that evidence. What if that evidence comes back and says, Nancy's DNA was found in his home? well, that would make you say, wait a minute, we got to go back, right? And that is not the case. Please don't.
I won't.
You see
But
what
it
I'm
does
saying?
sound, the man had, Carlos, is that correct? The man who spoke out?
Then don't say that. Like, if you don't want to imply that, why are you still saying that? You're continuing to slander Carlos. What if the DNA was found in his house later? Really? Really?
I believe that's
Yeah.
He's
He had
unprofessional.
said that. Is this me? No, it's you.
Wow.
He had said, this gentleman had said that he was a delivery driver and that perhaps he had driven in the area. So it sounds like that's maybe what it was, that he was delivering in the area.
That's part of it. There's a lot of things there that we looked at.
Okay.
So it's not just, oh, here's a delivery, here's somebody driving in the area. There's a lot more to that. And that built up for us enough probable cause in our eyes and the judges to say, I think we need a search warrant.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Thank you.
And let me say something on him. You're naming him Carlos or whatever.
Yeah.
We do not name anybody that's
Right.
investigative lead.
I won't say
Carlos or whatever.
that you're naming him, but you're corroborating that he's not just crazy going on the limb saying he's the guy. He's the guy.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So what other evidence? You said several pieces of evidence, gloves. What else has been found?
Oh, I'm not.
Nanos, because you know his name is Carlos. You read that warrant. Right? Thank you, Rudy. Michelada, fun contribution. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Again, I can't go in there. All I'm saying is we're getting some great leads based on a lot of calls, a lot of people tipping, but also on that video we have, the picture you have.
Do you expect there'll be more surveillance video to come out?
I hope so. That's why you see a push. We're making another push today with Ring and all those people with their home cameras, because we're actually extending that. I think we asked at first probably for that time frame we knew that existed, and then we took it out further. We're asking for
Right. Why January 11th? What were investigators asking about that day?
You know, they have a reason. I don't know that, but I know that they have a valid reason for that date.
When asked about surveillance camera, though, do you expect more surveillance video to come out from Nancy's home?
Who has a reason? I thought you were leading this. This guy's such a freaking tool.
Boy, I hope so.
Wow.
We've submitted it all.
You're working with the tech company still.
And yeah, we've asked them, and they're working as best they can.
Is there anything else you can tell us about this suspect? Because some of the things that's, we have the height and the, average sort of build, but those are pretty generic. Do we know hair color or race or anything like that?
You have the same video I have. So that's all we have.
Do you believe that maybe this person purchased the backpack recently?
No, I don't know that. I have no way of knowing that.
Okay. And I assume you guys have been in touch with Walmart to figure out.
There's all kinds of investigative efforts into all of that.
Okay. I'm going to just open it up, Andy, if you have a question.
How long does it take? I'm just wondering how long it takes Walmart to get that footage, because if you go in there and shoplift, looks like they got the footage back from months ago when you were shoplifting. He looks possessed by a demon. Look at his eyes. I think he needs to take a step back and maybe take a little vacation and let the FBI take over. Maybe go to the disco. Don't ask me to go, Nanos. I'm going with you. His effing lab is saying the DNA is mixed and they are. Yeah, I know. I know, abuelita. At this point, we could probably do a better. We could probably be in for sheriff.
In total, and is the number of quality leads.
He needs to retire.
I'll ask you that. How many leads have you gotten since the video was released?
So I'm going to go back, I think,
I'm
2 days
cracking
ago.
up because I think he just got this position too.
We were up to 18,000 here, and the FBI
We're
was
just
up to
so
about,
fucked
I think they
up.
said 14,000.
He needs to get out.
Since the video has been released, have you seen an increase in substantial
We saw
leads?
when that video was released, within a matter of hours, we went up about 4,500 more leads.
Do you believe someone out here in the Tucson area knows who that person is?
I do believe that. I do. We have told the community, somebody out there is, I think Savannah said, somebody out there knows this person. Somebody out there has information on this. We need that.
Do you believe that there were more than one people? Do you think it was multiple people there that night?
We have what we have in front of us.
Okay. Okay.
We have what we have in front of us. It reminds me of Sebastian Rogers. We don't know what we don't know. And where's Sebastian Rogers now? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Do you really think the evidence at the crime scene was collected properly? No. They probably have a partial DNA, Calissa, because they probably have a partial DNA because it was like diluted with something, I bet. This man about to get the position requires someone not to, yeah. If Disco Daddy asked you to dance, would you dance?
Yep, go for it.
Hell no. We don't know.
How did you go at the man in the
We don't know.
was trying to unlock a door?
Oh, okay. How did? Oh, that's what.
I don't.
think we know.
Yeah, I don't know that. I just know that it was. They've looked at it, and for whatever reason, they felt like, okay, this isn't the same. But I don't know that.
Okay, can that not count? Because I feel like it seems like it was at the same time. I think we know. I guess it's just, what is your message to the community that is saying 13 days on now and there's no suspect, no person of interest, no vehicle of interest?
We have over 400 cops out there working 24/7.
Oh, good.
Every night.
Great. So now the use of resources, great. Blame it on, now the taxpayers have to pay more. Great.
Please call with every bit of information you can. Help us help Nancy. It really is just that. We can't do this alone. And so if you
Are
get
we
a
your
Ring
employees?
request from Ring or somebody, please look at those things and send that to us. If you get a request from
Dude.
knocking on your door, please help us with this. Somebody does know this person.
So here he is pleading for help. Please call us 1-800-FBI tip line. But then he gets mad that people are actually out there boots on the ground. So which is it? Do you want people helping or no? Because if you do, then shut the fuck up about people helping and allow them to help. Like, why are you kicking away the women who wanted to come help there and help search? We have 400 cops and 16 gloves. You know what? That's all he has left. Law enforcement was struck just like the processing of the OJ crime. Sherry would have solved this already instead of it's all he has left. Alicia says there's something wrong with him. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Dude, listen. 1-800-TRAP-SHIP. Hey, pizza. Listen, we don't know what we don't know. Okay? We don't know what we don't know. No shit, we don't know what we don't know.
Investigators said there was no usable footage from the home of Nancy Guthrie in the Catalina Foothills north of Tucson, Arizona. The doorbell camera had been torn from the wall. The recordings were believed lost. Then, on February 10th, FBI Director 𝗏𝗏 Patel released 4 recovered images: a masked figure, gloved hands, a backpack, and what appeared to be a holstered firearm. If that footage existed all along, what else does it reveal? Nancy Ellen Long was born on January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She later married mining engineer Charles Guthrie, traveled internationally for his work, and eventually settled in Tucson, Arizona. Their daughter Savannah was born in Melbourne in 1971. After Charles Guthrie died suddenly in 1988 during a mining trip in Mexico, Nancy raised 3 children and worked for nearly 2 decades at the University of Arizona.
I love how this man talks. What the heck? Who is this little man?
Cameron became a fighter pilot. Annie became a poet and teacher. Savannah became the co-anchor of the Today Show.
Wow.
At 84, Nancy remained mentally sharp and fiercely independent, though she relied on a pacemaker and daily medication. She had lived in the same desert home for more than 50 years. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, she had dinner at Annie's home, played cards with family, and was dropped back at her residence at 9:48 p.m.
Do we have proof that they played cards? It's fucking weird.
The garage opened. 2 minutes later, it closed. She has not been seen since. So what happened between 9:50 p.m. and sunrise? The timeline that followed is precise. At 1:47 a.m., Nancy's doorbell camera disconnected. Investigators stated this was not a routine outage. The device did not simply lose power, it was physically removed. Roughly 30 minutes later, around 2:15 a.m., motion was detected on the property, but the camera that would have recorded that movement was already gone. Then, at 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker stopped syncing with her Apple devices. That timestamp is critical. According to her family, she depended on that device in daily medication for survival. The next morning, February 1st, she failed.
Oh, this is an AI. This is really him.
To attend a scheduled virtual church service. Calls went unanswered. By midday, a family member arrived at the house. Her vehicle was still in the garage. Her wallet remained inside. Medication sat untouched on the counter. Blood was found on the front porch. By that afternoon, the Pima County Sheriff's Department had declared the property a crime scene. By the following morning, the FBI had joined the investigation. Sheriff Chris Nanos stated that Nancy did not have dementia and could not have walked far on her own due to limited mobility. She could barely manage 50 yards without assistance. So if she did not leave voluntarily, how was she removed and by whom? The blood on the porch was tested. DNA confirmed it belonged to Nancy, but the most significant evidence, the surveillance footage, appeared to be missing until it wasn't. For 8 days, federal agents and local investigators worked with private sector specialists to recover corrupted or deleted data from Nancy's Google Nest surveillance system. What they eventually uncovered was not a full recording, but fragments. 4 black and white still images, a masked individual standing on her porch in the early hours of February 1st. The camera captured the figure reaching toward the lens, then attempting to block it, then pulling a plant to obscure the view. Moments later, the feed went dark. The recovered images show a person wearing a ski mask with openings for the eyes and mouth. Both hands are gloved. A backpack is strapped to their shoulders. Positioned at the waist appears to be a holstered firearm. Investigators describe the suspect as male, approximately 5'9" to 5'10" average build.
I just want to know who carried her out. Allegedly, someone threw her over their shoulder and carried her out. I think it requires 2 people. What's this dude's name? I'll look it up. His voice is magical. I love it. I'm over here enjoying it. Do they know what they recovered from the rooftop camera? No, we do not. We do not. This was a damn inside job. She can't move far, meaning it would have taken the robber a bit of time. Yeah, so pizza, could that maybe be why it took 41 minutes? You know, we were talking earlier about like, what the hell were they doing in the house for so long?
With what appeared to be a black mustache visible through the mask. The backpack was identified as a black 25L Ozark Trail hiker pack, sold exclusively at Walmart. Law enforcement began working with Walmart management to review purchase data. The holster's design and positioning drew attention. Officers canvassed gun shops across Arizona, seeking recognition of the style. There was also a possible ring visible beneath the glove material.
Possible ring. Nancy was 5'5", 84 years old, weighed 150 pounds.
Sheriff Nanos confirmed that forensic teams were analyzing whether that detail could assist identification. Every pixel was being examined. Then another discovery shifted the investigation. Approximately 2 miles from Nancy's home, gloves were located on the side of the road. In total, around 16 pairs were collected during area searches. Most were discarded by volunteer searchers, but 1 pair appeared consistent with those worn by the masked figure. Preliminary testing at a private forensic lab in Florida identified male DNA on that pair, an unknown male, not Nancy, not a family member. The profile was submitted to the FBI Combined DNA Index System, KODs. No match was found among more than 19 million offender profiles. This suggests the contributor had never been entered into the federal system for a qualifying offense. Investigators then announced they would pursue genealogical DNA analysis, a method used to identify relatives and build family trees when direct database matches fail. But genealogical analysis takes time, and time may be critical. Meanwhile, ransom communications began appearing. On February 2nd, a Tucson television station received an email containing a ransom note. It reportedly included details about Nancy's home and what she was wearing that night, information that would suggest inside knowledge.
We don't, yeah, because we don't know, you guys. Remember this. We don't know what we don't know. And we don't know what the hell Nancy was wearing that night. Why don't we know? They don't know. So then they never saw her come home because they don't know what she was wearing. So yeah, the perps were ahead of the game. We're ahead of them here. They were either inside and they disabled some of the cameras. Maybe the last one did. The one that they caught on footage, maybe he was the last one there. Like maybe the top one was disabled. Maybe that one would have caught what Nancy was wearing walking into the garage. They don't know what she was wearing, which means that they don't have proof that she arrived. Oh, I guess, wait, the pacemaker. But technically, the pacemaker is attached to her phone. So technically, her pacemaker could have disconnected from her phone at Annie's house. Is that a possibility? That's a possibility, right? She probably took blood thinning medication and had thinner skin. I didn't hear that they said anything about medication, but I don't know if they told us everything. I know I thought I heard heart meds and maybe diabetes, I thought. Where she lives, no way you're walking out of there alive.
Verification needed. Additional ransom messages demanded millions of dollars in Bitcoin and included a cryptocurrency wallet address and deadlines. One message claimed Nancy was alive but frightened. However, investigators cautioned that high-profile cases attract opportunists. On February 5th, Derek Fella, a 42-year-old from Hawthorne, California, was arrested on federal charges. Prosecutors alleged he posed as Nancy's abductor and sent fraudulent ransom demands. Authorities stated he had no involvement in her disappearance. If some ransom messages were fabricated, were any authentic? That question remains unresolved. Sheriff Nanos publicly cleared members of the Guthrie family as suspects on February 17th, stating that their phones, computers, and vehicles had been processed and that they were victims. Investigators expanded their search radius and requested residents within a 2-mile area review surveillance footage from January 11th between 9 p.m. and midnight and January 31st between 9:30 a.m. and 11 a.m. Those specific date requests suggest investigators believe pre-incident surveillance may have occurred. That possibility remains under investigation. The reward for information has increased to $100,000. Between 40,000 and 50,000 leads have been fielded. Multi-agency teams continue ground searches in the desert terrain surrounding her home. The manufacturer of Nancy's pacemaker is working with authorities to determine whether the device itself can be located. So far, there has been no public breakthrough. Nearly 3 weeks after Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home in the Arizona desert.
This is on Politics News.
The masked individual captured in those recovered images has not been identified. Genealogical DNA analysis is underway. Digital forensic efforts continue to examine residual data from the surveillance system. Investigators remain focused on the early morning window between 1:47 a.m. and 2:28 a.m. on February 1st. Was this a targeted act linked to Savannah Guthrie's public profile? Was it a planned abduction based on routine surveillance? Or was there another motive entirely? What the evidence shows is preparation. What it does not yet show is identity. Nancy's medication remains on her kitchen counter. Her car remains in the garage. Yellow roses have appeared outside her home. And somewhere beyond the Catalina Foothills, the unanswered question persists. Who stood on that porch at 2 a.m.? And where is Nancy Guthrie now?
I know you guys are like giving me a hard time because this is my little guy friend here. Let me tell you guys who that is, because his AI voice was very, very good. I'm impressed. Let me see who this is. His name is, oh, don't know. It doesn't say it in the, that's a real man, you guys. He's on politics. Politics? It's a smaller channel, but yeah, that's a real man. He does good. Yeah, you guys want to see another video by him so you guys know that it's real? Yeah, he has another one. Look. He does.
The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie has entered a critical investigative phase. DNA recovered from inside her home, along with gloves found nearby, is now under advanced forensic examination. The Puma County Sheriff has signaled a new possibility.
That's a whole channel. He's on there on all the videos. Wait. Yellow roses? Yeah, they're leaving yellow roses for Nancy. If authorities really think she's alive, then these kidnappers would need to have access to medical care. Exactly. The device is clearly Bluetooth. They should be able to find it. Apparently, it's taking that long. Maybe the masked man was helping them search. No. I have to sneeze. FBI isn't analyzing it right because they said it's a male. How do they know it's not a female? Hey, Tom. I'm not giving anyone a hard time. My humanity is gone and I just don't care anymore. Okay, fair enough. Sounds like the voice who did. Is he? I think so. He blinks funny. Are you sure? You guys are cracking me up. Okay, last video of the night is Yo Girl, Ashley Banfield, who's in the Epstein files. Dirty little Ashley was trying to get in Epstein's pantalones.
Are basically at the 3-week mark. It was 3 weeks ago.
Dirty little you, Ashley Banfield, trying to go on a date with Jeffrey Epstein after he raped girls. Yucky.
Tonight, it's Saturday night as I come to you, that Nancy Guthrie disappeared late into the night on Sunday morning. And that means we're heading into week 4.
Yeah,
and that makes it all the more fascinating. The reporting that's coming out today, as well as what I discovered from my source, just sort of puts me in a whole different direction now. I've spoken to someone who is in law enforcement.
Is this the chick that said you're a loser if you're not in the file? I don't know, but I'm not a loser. Melly's getting, no. Jen, I know you want to see me all night long. Pause. But we've already been live for a little while.
Enforcement is familiar with the investigation, who has told me that the blood found, and again, blood found inside the house. This is something that I reported on day 3, that another source of mine, a high-level law enforcement source, reported there was blood found inside the house. No one in law enforcement, the sheriff, etc., has confirmed that. But my source said there was blood found in the house. Today, another law enforcement source familiar with the investigation has said that the pattern of that blood inside the house matches the pattern outside the house, outside Nancy's front door. So you've seen
what, Ashley? Let me go back.
Today, another law enforcement source familiar with the investigation has said that the pattern of that blood inside the house matches the pattern outside the house, outside Nancy's front door. So you've seen that video where you can see droplets of Nancy Guthrie's blood leading away from her front door.
How do you know that?
And down.
They haven't even said what the DNA was inside.
The gravel path to the driveway. But those pattern droplets, as many experts have, described it, are as vertical. They fall straight up and down, 90 degrees. And there's no smears, there's no stepping in it, there's no struggle, there's no signs of struggle on that front doorstep. My source tells me it is exactly the same inside the house, that there's no sign of struggle in that blood. It's not smeared, there's no steps. They are those straight up and down drop pattern blood. I asked where in the house.
After he was convicted, Alicia. Did she try to date Epstein before, after? After. That's why everyone's all up in their feelings about it. This is starting to sound like the song, Annie, Are You Okay? Listen, pizza. Listen. We don't know what we don't know.
And I did not get that answer. I can't tell you if it was in the bedroom, if it was in the front entrance. What I can tell you is that at the time that 911 was called and sheriff's deputies were dispatched, and, you know, patrolman came, basically it was a call about a missing elderly woman. They were not aware at the time that this was much more than a missing elderly woman, but the signs, again, and this is the second source now telling me this, is that the back door was wide open. The blood droplets were inside the house and outside the house, and the front camera had been knocked off its mount. My first source said smashed, cameras plural, nest. Second source now saying definitely camera knocked off or ripped off or gone, moved off in some way. And so this is just fascinating because at the same time that I'm learning this information about these blood droplets inside the house matching blood droplets, the same pattern outside the house, there's...
Wait, but how did she know that? LE hasn't said that. Really sounds like Nancy has small skin on her tear, blood thinners. Yeah, that was one of my thoughts too. And then I thought, what if they hit her on the head? But then if they hit her on the head, they would have to carry her out.
Reporting that comes from NBC, that the sheriff has given an interview to NBC, taped it yesterday. It was released today.
And we just saw that one. That's the one we just saw.
I'm recording this at 10 o'clock at night, Saturday, February 21st. And this is what the reporting says, that there are no names that the sheriff's team is looking into. And there's a snag with the mixed DNA at the Florida lab that the sheriff is using. What's interesting is Michael Ruiz from Fox says, like, this runs completely counter to what we've been told till now, or at least what we've discovered. Reporters and investigators who are looking into this case have discovered the statements from local law enforcement do not match what we've learned with our own eyes, that there are names that have been taken and photographs to various gun shops all around Tucson. Gun shop owners and workers have actually been on television talking about it, running the names that they were given through their system. None of them apparently coming up positive at this point. So maybe it's semantics, but there were names. It's just that maybe those names haven't panned out. But again, the clarity is not there with regard to what the sheriff is saying. There's no names the team is looking into. FBI was certainly looking into names, upwards of 40. Brian Ensign said upwards of 40. Other reporters saying several dozen. Photographs as well being taken around to local gun shops. It's also unclear at this point if the DNA that was recovered inside the house, the male profile, unknown male DNA that didn't match Nancy Guthrie or any of those people who are close to her, it's unclear if it's been useful. This is sad. This is something that, you know, this is.
And she knows it's male DNA that was found inside. I mean, we could have obviously common sense, but the sheriff is doing a ton of embellishing. The sheriff is the worst I can vote. Ashley says she has a source that she must have. Yeah, pizza. She has a source is what she said. Yeah. Her same source that told her that it was actually Tommaso at the very beginning. That's her source, which she got a lot of shit for it, but you know what? Might be illegitimate. Savannah Guthrie is involved, says Dylan.
Is coming from how the sheriff has interviewed with NBC. And it's frustrating because the sheriff said that the lab that he's using is having trouble isolating mixed DNA samples. He said again that everything's still being analyzed, but this is troubling because we've been wondering why we got a report back so quickly on gloves 2 miles away that had DNA in them that was, you know, sent off to CODIS, returned back, no hits, and also doesn't match DNA that's in the house. But now we're learning that this is a struggle. trying to, we've been hearing before from the sheriff that there needs to be a separation of the mixture. That's kind of the wording that he was using before. But now that there's a snag.
Separation of the mixture. Like, is that even possible when you take account like blood plasma and like I don't think they got shit, to be honest.
With mixed DNA at the Florida lab. Unclear if the DNA recovered has been useful at this time.
I'm kind of, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they contaminated that scene and nothing they have is useful. It's probably, yeah, exactly what 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆 just said. It's probably because the evidence was compromised by improper collection. This is sad. This is sad the way this case is going down.
So I thought right away to talk to 𝗝ci Moore. 𝗝ci is the chief genetic genealogist at Parabon Nanolabs. She knows everything. I mean, literally walking inside.
It's the girl we like watching.
To DNA. And I had so many questions about the difficulty that the lab in Florida is having separating out the mix, as the sheriff told NBC. And then this report that there are these blood drops inside the house. I just had so many questions about what kind of mix could this possibly be. So I had a lengthy conversation with 𝗝ci about this.
A mix could be like it was in the Idaho 4, where it's diluted. It's mixed with something, water, piss, semen. Question mark?
As well as
maybe not
the efforts, if they do get that sample, to upload it to CODIS at some point. Or if that doesn't work, use investigative genetic genealogy. And they're not the same thing. And there's a lot of confusion about it. And
I think if it was semen, though, they would have an exact match, right? This lady's hard to follow. Belita says what? It's mixed with more than one person's DNA, but they said it's male. So there's 2 males? Yo, pause. That's what she means. Oh. Apparently someone knows where she's at, but don't want to say where she is. Yeah. Yeah, Anton, keep up. Take notes. This pisses me off so much. Yeah, it does.
It clears it all up, exactly what the path is. So I want you to hear that conversation with 𝗝ci Moore. 𝗝ci, tell me about the significance of what the sheriff has told NBC that the Florida lab, and this is, I'm giving it in my lingo, is struggling to separate out this DNA. What does that say to you?
Yeah, it's really concerning, and it tells me that it's unlikely that it is Nancy's DNA mixed with the suspect, and that's really what I was hoping for. Because if it was Nancy's with an unknown male, then that almost certainly would be the suspect, especially if it was fresh DNA, if it was, for instance, blood, if she fought back, because clearly there was some kind of altercation. So that leads me to speculate it's more likely it's 2 or more unknown people's DNA. That's not so straightforward. If you don't know who either of those contributors are, there might even be more than 2, which really makes it very complex. If it was Nancy's DNA mixed with an unknown male, they have her DNA, they've got the blood from the front porch, it would be relatively straightforward to extract her portion out from that mixed sample. It's called deconvolution. And it's something we do a lot. Our scientists at Parabon are amazing at it. So a lot of my cases I've been able to help solve were from mixed samples. But you have to have a certain proportion of the person that you're trying to identify in that. If they are the minor contributor by a significant amount, if it's say 90% one person and 10% the person you want to ID, that can be virtually impossible. So it's really disappointing. I definitely had my hopes up that this was going to be a straightforward deconvolution, that it was Nancy and someone else, which would make it more definitively tied to the actual crime. If it's, say, transfer DNA, or what's commonly called touch DNA, from multiple unknown people, that really does make it difficult, and that's really disappointing.
Trump says he's done with the case pretty much. Deep professional expert DNA lady that I really like here. What's her name? I really like her. She's like, yeah, hotter than I thought. Oh shit, wait, how do they know that's Nancy's blood on the porch? Right? Because they tested it, so it's Nancy's. So then the inside blood isn't Nancy's or DNA, whatever DNA they have. If there was more than 3 people, that's 3 more times of making a mistake, though. Yeah, getting close to a month. Didn't they say in a newscast in the first day or 2 that the investigators... Yeah, but the first person, I think, was Brian Enton, who was at the scene. Remember in that interview? But I think they tested it only after Brian Enton pointed out, after they released the crime scene, too soon.
I have so many questions about that, and the news that my source has broken to me today is that those blood droplets outside continued inside in the same pattern inside. I can't tell you where, just that the blood that was found inside the house, my source, law enforcement source, says it is the same droplet pattern. It's not a struggle. It's not a smear. But
who the hell is her source? Is it Nanos?
Does that help you to sort of think through what might be happening in Florida?
Well, we don't even know if it is that sample, at all. It could be something completely different. Maybe they swabbed a faucet, for instance. Sometimes when people are at a crime scene for an extended period of time, which it sounds like this person was, they use the restroom. It's the oddest thing. There's been people who have spit in the toilet, who have used the toilet and left it and didn't flush it. And so we've been able to identify people that way. So it's so difficult to speculate as to what it is they have without more information. But just, as we just discussed, the fact that the deconvolution is difficult, if that reporting is true, that does make me...
You guys are cracking me up, dude. Like, Jen, and then Wilson says she's likely getting Sheriff Pipe, and then Rudy says Sheriff iPod Nano. Dude, I used to love my iPod Nano.
I believe it's less likely that it is one of those straightforward deconvolutions where you can extract out one person's known DNA.
And to be clear, the sheriff has only released that there is biological, matter that they are continuing to test. At one point said DNA, male DNA, not connected to Nancy or her immediate circle of known.
I actually did see him say it was a mixture. First, he was talking about separating it out, so I was speculating it was a mixture. But then I actually heard him use those words.
Yeah, and I have too. And I wondered, is it possible that now knowing this information, that there's this blood and its droplets inside the house, that there might have been some kind of a struggle or an injury happening where the assailant, expelled saliva or just expiring, his own breath may have mixed with her blood. Is that a possibility?
It certainly is, but I believe that if
this was a professional, why would they do all of this? Which is, they're getting away with it thus far, guys. So as of 21 days in, Nanos and the FBI ain't winning here. They don't know shit. They can't even get the case together. Let's hope the FBI was collecting the evidence and not the PD. I think it was the PD.
What they were working with, they would not be struggling with it. Now, I don't know how reliable that reporting is, but if that is correct, that is what leads me to believe that it is something, less straightforward than that. Ever since we heard there was a mixture, I was hoping it's Nancy's DNA, it's the suspect's DNA mixed. That, would be something that I don't think the lab would struggle with at all. But we've been contacted in the past where they've had 3 contributors or 4 contributors. And, if these are unknown individuals, it becomes very difficult, if not impossible, to separate that out and to be able to focus on just one person.
A lot of people would wonder, well, what kind of a what kind of a mixed source might they have tapped? And I'm not suggesting you're going to know, but I thought if there's male DNA, it could be, came in a FedEx package and the FedEx package went onto the counter in the kitchen. Is that the kind of thing that might end up becoming a mixed sample, or is that way off?
No, that's correct. And that is why it's so disappointing to me as well.
Don't tell me that they have some DNA from the perp, but it's like she just said, it might be contaminated. It's probably saliva from the flashlight in the guy's mouth.
Because if it's not blood, if it's not saliva, if it's transfer DNA or touch DNA, as people call it, that is less likely to be the suspect, because we leave DNA everywhere we go. And you and I could be together and I could get a piece of your hair on me and I could go home and transfer that into my home and you were never even there. So having someone's DNA, if it's transfer DNA, doesn't necessarily mean they were even there. We could shake hands and I leave a few skin cells on your hand and then you could transfer that somewhere. And so it's just far less definitive if that is the type of DNA that they're working with, that it's actually the suspect's DNA. And we know he had gloves. We know he was covered, right? We saw the video. So he was definitely making an effort to not leave any biological material behind.
But he was breathing. And doesn't breath just automatically expel, or is that just too small of a
It's too small.
It depends. I think if somebody sneezed or coughed, you'd have a much better chance. Breathing, not so much. But he had that, what appeared to be that flashlight in his mouth. So that's really hopeful, because he likely took that out, right? So he's wearing gloves to try to keep from leaving his DNA, but there's saliva all over that, what looked to be a bite flashlight. He takes it out of his mouth. Now he has saliva all over his gloves. And that could absolutely have been left in the home. It would have been very difficult for him not to leave that somewhere. So that's hopeful, but maybe it's on the door, right? I'm not sure.
Handle, or, I mean, on the door handle, on the cameras that are missing, and my source said smashed, but certainly it is gone off that bracket. That could have, and I wondered that what appears to be a bite light in your mouth would also make you salivate, and maybe there had been some saliva that dropped on those front tiles.
Exactly. I've been speculating the exact same thing for the last few days, that if he leaned forward to disable that camera with that in his mouth, it would have been extremely difficult to keep from slobbering on the ground. So I think that's an option too, although that's more likely to be single source. And it doesn't, and single source means, just that person's DNA, but it doesn't sound like that's what they're working with. If they had that, I don't think they'd be struggling, because it's unlikely there'd be anyone else's DNA right there under that.
And it was found inside the house. We know that the biological matter and that, this mixed sample of DNA is from inside the house. What else could that be? Could that be, I mean, I suppose it could be a lot of things, but what sort of examples could you imagine in your line of work that a mixed sample inside the house could be?
Well, it could be blood. It could be saliva. It could be semen and bodily fluids.
Oh my God, I said that earlier. I said it could be other bodily fluids. Who? I really like the girl on the right. Pacemaker keeps going after the person dies. Yeah, that's what I thought. Either the battery runs dead, which can take 10 years, or they have to be turned off. So we can agree. Someone said, who said this? People that deliver your appliances leave your DNA. Dude, the Amazon guy must have left his DNA today when he left his package here. He touched it with his hand, set it on my doorstep. I went out there. Now I have his DNA. I could set him up for a crime. Or they took a pee before they took her. Okay. Peacemaker. Oh yeah. Somebody said something about the pinging. Or no, was that in my head? I'm crazy. I was thinking it. Okay. So I was going to say the perp didn't have a cell phone because it would ping. I don't think they were that dumb. There could be semen. You guys, grape does not discriminate. Okay. Some people do have fetishes with older ladies. And I mean that respectfully. I hope not. The Amazon delivery leaves their DNA on packages all the time. That's what I'm saying. The mailman does too.
It could be touch transfer DNA. Those, and it could be hair, but not mixed. So if it's hair, it wouldn't be mixed. So if we're just talking about mixed exclusively, those are the only ones that I can think of. So it's it's either a bodily fluid or a sweat, which is typically, transfer DNA is, you find that. So
and again, he's covered head to toe. So it's hard to imagine that any sweat would have,
unless he touched something, that outfit looked uncomfortable. If he reached inside that, and he could very well have been sweating, or maybe some could have dripped because he did have some bits of skin that were uncovered. And if he leaned forward, for instance, if Nancy was in the bed, for example, and he leaned forward, during the abduction, it's certainly possible something could have dripped.
They were in there for 41 minutes. What were they doing? Yes, Agent Orange. Were they cleaning up? Hey, Idaho, 8 hours. Who cleaned up all that stuff? I don't know. Allegedly Brian Koberger in 3 minutes, but they were in there for 41 minutes. If it was old lady, what would a killer be doing in there for 41 minutes if he's not killing anyone?
On the sheets. I don't think we have any reason to believe
Or a burglar if he's not taking anything.
Sexual assault, but we very commonly see mixtures in sexual assaults. That's very, very common. It's actually one of the reasons we work with them so often. Hopefully there was nothing like that, but we can't rule it out because we don't know what they found in the home. So, to summarize what you just asked, blood, saliva, semen, sweat, skin cells are probably
maybe sweat, maybe saliva, maybe skin cells. I don't think nobody left their semen around.
the options that they'd be.
So if we're talking about, skin cells are hard again because he's all covered up. But like you said, if he touched that bite light, now the saliva is on the glove, and he uses a door handle. He's got to open a door, right?
And then that would be mixed, right? Because a lot of people touched that door handle, undoubtedly. So you have to hope he was the last one who did, and he's the major contributor. You're always hoping in the mixture that your unidentified person that you need to zero in on is the majority of that DNA sample.
Can I ask you, it's hard to know what the sheriff means when he says that they're having trouble isolating mixed DNA samples.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible they will never get an actual viable sample from a mix, or is it just possible that they're having trouble identifying it?
It is possible that they would be unable to deconvolute it to the point where it would be identifiable. That's why it's so disappointing.
Why is that? Too small sample?
It's more it's the percentages. So if it is the minor contributor that you're trying to identify, and he's only 10% of that mixture, it can be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to identify that individual, especially
the DNA professionals like, you might be SOL here, yo. Just letting you know.
Especially if it's more than 2.
Whoa.
If it's 2, I think, there's a chance. But if it's 3 and 4, and you don't have the reference samples for the other individuals in that mixture, then you've got a real problem. If they could say, okay, there's 3 people in this mixture, and one of them is Annie's. Okay, we've got Annie's DNA. We can work with that to extract it. That would be helpful. But then you still have 2 unknown individuals. And it's very difficult to separate that out without a reference sample, unless one person's DNA is, by far the major contributor in that mixture. So I wouldn't say it's impossible. It just depends on so many factors, depends on how many people in the mixture. It depends on the percentages. Is one person 50%, one person 40, and another 10? Is one person 90% and another 10? All of those things are what go into determining whether it's going to be able to be successfully deconvoluted and then identified.
You know what, you guys, I was thinking too, because Alicia, of your comment, defense lawyers can have a heyday with this. Well, even if it was hypothetically, allegedly, we're just making shit up, Annie, or Tommaso, couldn't they argue that Nancy was over at their house? Therefore, their DNA could have been, quote unquote, touch or transfer DNA that is back at Nancy's. And they also, that's their mother. So they probably spent quality time with her. So there would be Savannah DNA, Annie DNA, Tommaso DNA at Nancy's house. Or no?
And to be clear, I've mentioned this a lot in many of my episodes. This lab in Deerfield Beach, Florida, I think it's called DNA International. Is that
DNA
correct?
Labs International, yes.
DNA Labs International. No joke. They are good.
Right.
And they
I
have
love how you guys thought it was her eyeshadow. It's not. It's the blue light glasses reflecting on her screen.
Right. And I know that there was a lot of consternation early on. How could the sheriff do this? But literally, they are a phenomenal outfit that has solved crimes before, like really tricky crimes to solve. If they can't do it, is there anybody else who could? Or if they can't do it, you're at the end of the road.
Well, I mean, I don't want to advocate for Parabon, but I would say Parabon's bioinformatics scientists are specialists in mixture deconvolution. It's something that they are especially.
Yeah, her family's house would be, I know. So like say they end up finding Annie's DNA. Like Annie's lawyer could say, well, duh, that's my mom. You know what I mean? How do they find DNA? I walk through my home and my DNA is everywhere, but I can't see it. They use all kinds of liquids and powders and Q-tips. Most of the time you can't even see it on the Q-tips or whatever. Her family, friends, and coworkers home all have been, yeah. But like they could all say, well, yeah, I was over at Nancy's having tea, 2 weeks ago, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I rode in her car, or yeah, she rode in my car. Like, I'm just saying, like, it's probably going to be. And if, I'm just saying Annie and Tommaso as an example, but they were her caregivers allegedly. So no shit, they're going to find their DNA everywhere. But yeah, someone said, Calissa said they finally found out it was the cops. Yeah.
Good at. A lot of my successful cases have been. But again, even for them, it's going to come down to the proportions and the number. So I don't know. I haven't worked with DNA Labs International's deconvolution because we have such good bioinformaticists at Parabon. So I don't want to say they're better than theirs. I don't know. But I believe very strongly in this lab. I've worked with them. They are great at extracting DNA. Parabon doesn't do extractions. So we've had them extract the DNA from the evidence on a lot of our successful cases that I've been able to go on and help law enforcement solve. And so I know how good they are on really difficult samples. So as I've been saying all week, I have full confidence in them. And I actually think the sheriff made a great choice because they're kind of a one-stop shop. They can do the extraction, they can create the STR profile, which is the one that's uploaded to CODIS, and they can create the SNP profile that's used for genetic genealogy, all in parallel, right? As soon as they do the extraction, they can start both of those other processes at once. And so he saved time, because if you just send it to someone that only has the capability for the CODIS profile, which the FBI does, FBI doesn't have the capability to create a SNP profile for genetic genealogy in-house. They always send that out. And that is not something that is done in public labs, government labs. It's always a private third-party lab that creates that SNP profile. And so by sending it to a lab he has a lot of experience with, he's had a contract with them for a long time, he's obviously had a lot of successes with them. To me, that was a great choice. Was it the best choice? I don't know. I would think so, in my opinion, but I don't know all the details. But the fact he was criticized for it, I think
you're in the business. I think people would value your opinion.
Yeah, we do value your opinion. I forget her name. Hey, F. Chupin, good to see you, love. I'm happy when you stop by. And hey, Nostalgia Notes, good to see you. Yeah, tap the like right now before I spank you. I'm just going to listen from here on in. Whatever, Jan. Whatever.
Because this literally is your business. You know it better than any of us.
Well, I think he made a great choice. And the fact he was criticized for it was, in my mind, competitive posturing from the people that were speaking out about it, because the person who originally was interviewed that came out and said it was devastating owns a competing lab, and they would have, I'm sure, liked to have worked the case. We all would have liked to have worked the case. I would have loved to have helped try to find Nancy, but you know, only one lab, one team is likely to get that opportunity, at least outside the FBI. The FBI may come in and bring their investigative genetic genealogy team in, just like they did on the Kohberger case. It was started by one company, and then it wasn't happening quickly enough, apparently. So the FBI took over the investigative genetic genealogy and identified him. We might see something similar here, but first they've got to get that SNP profile. And probably the glove that was found 2 miles from the home, I wouldn't be surprised if they already have that, or already, moving forward with that. But the DNA inside the home, which to me is much more compelling, apparently seems to be challenging. So it may take a while for them to create a SNP profile, if they're even able to do so. So that's the first time I've said that, because I've always thought they absolutely would be able to, but I didn't have all the information.
And I'm going to get to that process in a minute, but I just want to be super clear, because sometimes I need people to talk to me like I'm 5.
As we all do, if it's something we're not super familiar with.
Right. STR is the standard thing that most people are used to hearing about, but SNP, how does that differ in the most simplistic terms?
It's just a completely different type of genetic marker. So an STR is a short tandem repeat. It's a certain type of genetic marker. SNP is a single nucleotide polymorphism. It's a type of genetic marker that changes quickly. So we share 99.9% of our DNA. But if you want to identify someone, you need to look at the portions of the DNA that mutate more quickly, that vary among us. And the only reason that two people would share a significant stretch of SNPs is if they have a common ancestor in their family tree. And that is what our work is based on. We need to find people that share these long stretches of SNPs in their DNA, because they can only inherit that from a common ancestor.
Most of what you're saying is lost on me, but let me ask you.
Okay, yeah, I'm not saying it an easy way. Okay, well, STRs,
let me ask you if this is accurate. Okay. And again, this is sort of I'm the neophyte in the room right now, but the way I've always understood it is you take a sample and you upload it to CODIS. And if it's a perfect 100% match, you get your result.
And it'll be the same string of numbers. Yes.
Okay. If it's not quite a full match, but it's a 50% match, CODIS will say, we can't help you, but you should take that 50%, because we might actually have here a family member, a parent is 50%. If you get a 25% match, maybe it's a sibling or a cousin at 12%, or an aunt or an uncle, and you're on your own as a law enforcement agency. You can't use CODIS now, but you can go off to the state databases, because some states have a pretty robust database of offenders and even arrestees. And if the state database doesn't help, well, then I'm going to get to this. It's a longer conversation. You go sort of like the Hail Mary, and you look to the retail genealogy databases like 23andMe and Ancestry, and because they're private and not available, you got to use a warrant. Does that sound right, the way I explained it?
Mostly. So let's break it down. There's 3 different types of searching in databases. There's the STR profiles in CODIS, where they're looking for an exact match. They can also search the state and local databases for that exact match. They're looking for that person who's been arrested and or convicted of a serious crime and they've been compelled to put their DNA in that database. Some states allow what's called familial searching. There's a lot of confusion with genetic genealogy and familial. Okay. Familial is using that same STR profile, that law enforcement genetic profile, to look for immediate relatives. It really only works for very close relatives, typically
like the 50%ers, like the parents,
parent, child, and full siblings. So full siblings also share on average 50%.
Oh my God.
Parents and children exactly 50%. Full siblings on average 50%. There is a more complex type of familial DNA searching in the law enforcement databases called YSTRs. And they're looking for people who share their direct paternal line. So their father's 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 line. And those could be more distant relatives, but they connect on that direct line. Then there's investigative genetic genealogy. So if both of those fail, we can broaden the search because we're looking at about 700,000 genetic markers across the genome, which gives us the power to find distant relatives, second, third, fourth, fifth cousins, and
Holy
beyond.
cow.
Anyone who uploads their DNA or tests at one of those companies will have hundreds, if not thousands, of relatives on their match list. But now a match means a partial match. They might share less than 1% of their DNA, but they are still your relatives. It's just a matter of how far back your common ancestors are in the tree. If you share 12% of your DNA, you're probably first cousins. You share grandparents. If you share 3%,
Oh my
probably
God,
second
that's
cousins.
crazy.
You share great grandparents. If you share 1%, you may be third cousins and share great great grandparents. So the amount of DNA tells us how far back we have to go in the tree to find the common ancestor. Now you got into the next thing, which is, though, despite the fact there are over 50 million, despite the fact that there are over 50 million people who have taken direct consumer DNA tests, law enforcement is barred from using the vast majority of those profiles because the three largest companies have barred their use. So, and
again, it's not that
So basically what she's saying is they have a shit ton of work to try to figure out who the hell that DNA belongs to. Because if they're not in one system, so they're, yeah, I guess we don't know what we don't know, because like also we don't know how much DNA percentage they have. So it's like
they're trying to obfuscate or be difficult. These are private companies, and their clients, their customers, maybe didn't expect that suddenly, you know, they bought this service and they were going to be opened up to law enforcement, and maybe their uncle would be arrested because of it. I mean, it's a fair move that they made to say it's private and it's not open for law enforcement.
yes, it's fair, but what I've come to learn over the years is the vast majority of people believe that law enforcement is using Ancestry DNA and 23andMe when they're not. In fact, I even hear it in the media all the time. So I've spent a lot of time trying to dispel this misconception. I also get a lot of emails and comments on social media where people say, I wanted to help you solve cases, so I tested at Ancestry or 23andMe. And I have to say, no, we can't access that. There's even people in my comments right now swearing that they were given the option to check a box to help law enforcement in Ancestry. That's not possible. That's never happened. So they're misremembering. But the majority of the people in those databases seem to believe law enforcement is already using them. Now, of course, the people that are more educated about the subject, the genetic genealogists, the people that are, you know, have spent more time in this, know that they're not in there. And those people certainly, you know, may have objections. But there are studies that have been done, long-term studies on the public perception of genetic genealogy. And it's been surprising. Even I was surprised at the level of support. About 91% of people supported the use of genetic genealogy to identify violent criminals. And so that wide support in the public, I would think, would encourage these bigger companies to create an opt-in system like GEDmatch. GEDmatch is one of the small databases that we can access. You check a box there if you're willing to let law enforcement compare against violent criminal profiles. Ancestry could do that. 23andMe could do that. They've chosen not to. They've taken the stance, we're not even going to give our customers that choice.
Ooh, there you go. For those of you who do 23andMe and all that. I haven't. I've always wanted to, but now I'm like, oh. I'm wondering, did they only collect one sample of DNA from the whole house? That'd be ridiculous, because they should have tested her bed, mattress. I'm thinking they did. They did, Calissa. I think maybe only.
That, if they would do that, that would be a good middle ground. And I don't think law enforcement would serve them with warrants. But I think the way it's going with the resistance that these companies have put up, I think there will be warrants served on these companies. There's going to be a knockdown, drag out fight. Some of these companies have really deep pockets. And it's going to be tough for them to win it because of the precedent that's been set in the past, that it's hard to keep law enforcement out from somewhere that the public is able to go. And so I've had this explained to me by a former FBI lawyer, a brilliant man, Steve Kramer. And, you know, it sounds I'm not a legal expert, but it sounds like they're going to have a very good basis to serve these warrants and a very good chance that they could win and get this court order. And then they're in there seeing the whole database. It would be, so much better if people were given that option to choose. That's always what I'm advocating for, is freedom of choice.
I agree with you. It should be something that the customers have the right to opt into, because I do think a lot of people want to help. I mean, just look at the 40,000 tips that have come in to the FBI and to the local law enforcement in Tucson.
They just don't know that they have to download their raw data and put it in one of the 3 databases we can access, which are GenMatch.
And name those 3, just so everybody can hear. Name those 3 other databases that you can check a box and you can be part of the problem solving.
The 3 databases that we are allowed to use for these types of cases are GenMatch, Family Tree DNA, and the new nonprofit database called DNA Justice. It's the smallest at the moment, but we're hoping to grow it. And what it's really good for are people who don't want their DNA in a public database where other people can see them. I have people contact me saying, I want to help law enforcement, but I don't want to be seen by my relatives. I don't want adoptees to see me, for instance. And so in DNA Justice, it's exclusively for law enforcement and investigative genetic genealogists who are working their cases. Nobody else can see the match list. So you don't log in like you do at GenMatch. See the other people in there. So those are the 3 options, but you have to kind of jump through hoops if you're going to upload to GenMatch and DNA Justice, because they don't test DNA. You have to have tested elsewhere. So you have to download your raw data and then go create an account and upload.
Wow,
that's a lot. And we lose a lot of people who want to help us during the
because
process.
it's a big process. That's a lot
really
to ask.
is.
It's already a lot to ask someone to just come in and volunteer this privacy issue, and then to ask them to take these other steps. Let me ask you about how rare the warrant process is, because I've heard you speak in the past that you're just so nervous in terms of crime fighting. You're just so nervous that you're going to lose that incredible opportunity if it's overused by too many warrants.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not something that has been done. There have not been warrants served on these large companies, 23andMe and Ancestry DNA. No, because they have a transparency report where they release if they have successful warrants, or I think any warrants, and they have gotten credit card information from their members, but no law enforcement, to my knowledge, and I'm pretty in the loop, has ever been able to get a sample into their databases, either surreptitiously or through a warrant. It just hasn't happened yet, but I believe it is coming. It would have happened if the Charlie Kirk murderer had not been identified so quickly, or the attempted assassination of President Trump, if they hadn't found that person. I can almost guarantee those warrants would have been served, but they identified those individuals in other ways. I don't know if this will be the case, but I think it's very possible this is the case. If it's not this case, it'll be another case very soon. I think the FBI is ready to serve those warrants on those companies. And MyHeritage is a whole different discussion. We know it was used in Kohberger, but that's because they accepted outside uploads. They used to allow you to test elsewhere and then port your raw data over there and upload it, just like GenMatch and Family Tree DNA do. But they stopped.
There's a lot to this DNA genealogy
doing that after the Kohberger hearings revealed that their database was used. So now you have to swab your cheek and send it in to them. At Ancestry and 23andMe, you have to spit in the tube and mail it in. And they can tell. People say, well, they'll just sneak the forensic sample in. No, it's not that simple, because when you spit in a tube, it is fresh DNA and lots of it. They make you put, I don't know if you've done it, but you put quite a lot of saliva. They do that partly so it's consented. They don't want people stealing other people's DNA. I want to see if my boyfriend has any kids out there, right? Let's get his toothbrush. They don't want that to happen. They want to make sure the person whose DNA is being tested has consented to that. And so it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to try to sneak a small amount of a forensic sample in there. They'll reject it. They reject lots of samples. My brother-in-law's was rejected 3 times before it went through, because some people don't have as many skin cells in their saliva, for instance. So they're very, very careful, and they have very strict standards for what DNA they will accept. So it's not like you can just dump some of the crime scene DNA in that tube and mail it in. It's not going to happen.
Wow.
I always wondered about that, and it makes perfect sense because
So I wonder if they had enough DNA from inside the house. You're supposed to keep your DNA private when those companies sell to other company. It gets dicey. Yeah, and then which companies do they decide they want to work with? You know, because I know Epstein was working with one of them allegedly. I don't know.
I couldn't understand why I had to fill half of a
Yep.
tube when a
I
crime
thought-
can be solved like Koberger's with a tiny amount of DNA on the
Yeah,
night
they don't
sheets.
really need that much. You know, they really
Yeah.
just need a much, much smaller amount.
Cece, let me ask you this. I mean, it's frustrating, right? Because there are just millions upon millions of identities and samples, et cetera, in these commercial databases. But what do you think is going to break the seal? A case like Nancy Guthrie's, where there is this challenge, this warrant served. I thought that multiple warrants have been served in the past, but just not many. It really in the rarest of cases. And you're saying it's just never happened.
No,
do you see it maybe
there's
happening
been
in this
a
one?
warrant served on GEDmatch. I just need to clarify that. When they went into opt-in, opt-out, they used to be wide open. And now it's opt-in, opt-out. And right after they switched to that system, there was a warrant served on them for the full database. But we already had the match list in that case. I worked that case. I already had the pre-opt-out match list. So it really wasn't necessary. And we weren't seeing anything new. I think maybe it was a test case for the people who decided to serve that. But it's been greatly discouraged because all of us doing this don't want to lose this amazing tool for law enforcement. So detectives, agencies, prosecutors, the FBI, everyone has kind of treated it with kid gloves. We don't want to alienate the public by going in there like a bull in a china shop. So that's why it hasn't happened yet. But
do you think that it's going to happen?
I do.
In this case, in Nancy Guthrie's case?
If they get a viable SNP profile and they're unable to identify that DNA contributor pretty quickly, I believe it will happen. If not this case, it's going to happen in another case very, very soon. I think they are ready to go. I think it's already written. I think they already have their arguments laid out, and it's just a matter of time before that happens. And the problem with that is once that happens, the dam is going to be open, right? And every agency, every law enforcement agency in the country and maybe outside the country may start serving those warrants. And that is probably not what we want either. But there's a lot of law enforcement agencies that are sitting on cases that we haven't been able to solve yet, that are itching to serve a warrant themselves. And so far they've all held off. Everyone's kind of waiting to see what DOJ and FBI does. But once there's a successful one, I really think there will be many. In fact, those companies will probably have to make a whole separate unit for dealing with them, which I can't imagine they want to have a legal team that is dealing with warrants and court orders all day long.
Well, this has just been so enlightening and so helpful because I think there is a lot of confusion about the business of DNA and genealogy and familial testing, et cetera. So thank you so much, for the work that you do, for the incredible wisdom that you've been able to gather and digest. And thank you for imparting on us. I really appreciate it. There's also new reporting from the New York Post today that is troubling for the sheriff. I know he's come under a lot of fire, but this is what the New York Post is reporting. They're saying, Sheriff Chris Nanos is under fire for locking down the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's abduction, limiting all decisions to just himself and 2 senior officers, according to a new report. Nanos, who has also faced intense scrutiny for sidelining the FBI, is only allowing Chief Jesus Lopez and Captain Juan Carlos Navarro control over the hunt for Mrs. Guthrie. Quote, he will only let himself or 2 of his handpicked staffers make decisions on the case, one insider said. Quote, everybody else is being told what to do. No one else has a say-so or an opinion. It's just 3 men making decisions. It's incredibly unusual to do that when you have so many people working together and the FBI are involved, the source added. Additional quote, it's limited to the thought process of 3 men. They keep everything from the FBI. They just aren't sharing. It's a pretty striking.
That's wild. I wonder if the governor or the family has something to do with that. Or if they sell to an insurance company, your genetic propensity to diabetes or high blood. Yes, Calissa, that's actually a thing. That's available for them to use to raise your rates. Remember when a lab tech was using their saliva to add moisturize to swabs to collect DNA? It happened in the UK. Really? Makes me think what he's hiding. Yeah, you guys, that's not good.
Accusation from someone who says they're inside the investigation. And this is what they added. So no actual detectives are steering this, just command staff. This is highly unusual. Normally, an experienced detective would steer it and provide updates through the chain of command, this insider explained. To be fair, it's typical, this insider continues, to keep details under tight wraps, as we saw in the Idaho case. What is unusual, the source says, is command driving the investigation. It's the tail wagging the dog. So again, more sort of chatter from the ground through sources. Again, this is a report.
I hope the FBI is looking into those officers. I'm not meaning to blame them or anything, but sus, right? I still believe that a family member is in on it. Not sure which one, but that's fair, Melinda.
In the New York Post, they're citing the Daily Mail from people who are just upset and saying that they just don't like the way this investigation is being run. For his part, the sheriff gave a statement again today, and here it is. Not a lot there. Neighborhood activity. They start with detectives are back. Detectives and agents, which means detectives from the sheriff and agents from the FBI, are back today in the Guthrie neighborhood canvassing as part of the investigation. No additional details will be provided. We appreciate the cooperation this morning with the traffic movement. Apparently the crews came out, they placed barricades on the roadway. There was a bunch of signs that came up. I saw that with Fox Digital. They captured these crews coming out.
I feel like they did that on purpose to stop the searchers. And I thought, Alicia, that was my theory, is that the sheriff was her source. We don't know who her source is.
Posting no parking signs. And I can tell you that's basically just, it's been a zoo on Nancy Guthrie Street. Upwards of 300 media at one point showed up. And so as of just late in the week, they decided to change the roadway to one way only and allow zero parking on one side. And, they're just trying to make things workable for the people who still live there, emergency vehicles that need to get through, garbage trucks that need to get through. It was all just getting very, very difficult. And so this was sort of the update. Also, there's another mention, gloves, the sheriff says in the update. Detectives and agents have collected multiple gloves from the area, and analysis is part of the investigation. Specific details about these pieces of evidence will not be shared publicly, as this remains an active investigation. Resources, there have been no changes in resources in this investigation. There may be fluctuations day to day based on investigative leads. Several hundred law enforcement personnel remain dedicated to this case. This will remain an active investigation until Nancy Guthrie is found or all leads are exhausted. And then the comment from the sheriff about DNA. All evidence from the crime scene and search warrant scenes has been submitted for analysis. Lab experts are working through that analysis. As with any biological evidence, there can be challenges separating DNA, etc. There are currently no updates regarding this process. Well, there is an update, Sheriff. You just gave it to NBC. So this is what makes people very frustrated because they hear one thing from you today and you taped something with NBC yesterday that is different, saying, in fact, there is a struggle going on at the lab in Florida to separate this unknown male DNA from a mixture. So again, clear as mud in the messaging, and also a little unfair too, because this is what happens when things are complicated. You get messy reporting and the public gets messy details and messy facts. All right. Something else that the sheriff put in his statement, helicopter/landfill. That's the title. Yesterday, there was a lot of reporting about a private helicopter searching in what looked like a grid pattern over a landfill in the Tucson area. What the sheriff says is the private aerial activity near a landfill yesterday was not related to this investigation. All that says to me is that the investigators weren't involved. Does it mean that a private searcher wasn't trying to do something? It's hard to say, because even if they were using the signal sniffer, that would be part of the investigation. So take that for what it is. Also, private search parties. The sheriff is, it seems, discouraging volunteer search parties. Let me read you his words. Volunteer search groups have inquired about being in the area. Per the sheriff, they were asked to please give investigators the space they need to do their work. We appreciate their concern, and we all want to find Nancy, but this work is best left to professionals. Pima County Sheriff's Department has volunteer opportunities if they wish to get involved with the department. Private property laws apply. It is up to each individual property owner to grant permission for anyone to be on their property. I understand that. That makes sense. But I also have heard criticism that, I mean, for God's sake, the desert is a big place. Why not enlist the help of others? I mean, search parties for Elizabeth Smart were enormous. Private search parties came in and they were looking everywhere. And in a lot of the cases that I've covered, private search parties come in, people that are well established with law enforcement, work well with law enforcement. So I'm a little surprised that they're just being discouraged outright by the sheriff, because again, the desert's a big place and they need as many eyeballs as they can get, you would think. But again, doesn't want to corrupt or disturb their investigative process in any way. Media availability. There are currently...
Isn't that what happened with Gabby Petito, though? Didn't searchers find her? I wonder if they hired the helicopter and that's why the sheriff announced it. Dark web professionals. I also think someone's playing with authorities about her being in Mexico. Yeah, I don't think she's in Mexico.
No press briefing scheduled. We
But
do
it
not
could be a
anticipate any
distraction.
sheriff media availability next week. Woof. If that changes, we'll let you know via email or via the Pima Sheriff account on X. Okay, well, that's why there's mixed messaging. You know, you give these cherry-picked interviews out and then you put out a statement the next day that doesn't even match the interview that you gave yesterday. It's all very troubling. It's been frustrating. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to lie, but I encourage you all. I've said this a few times and I'll say it again. 1-800-CALL-FBI is the place to call for tips. Okay. 40,000 plus tips have now come in to the sheriff and to the FBI, but they do ask that think about it before you call. Think, is this a viable tip? Don't call with your theories. That's not what they need, or complaints. Don't do that. It is really just tips. And to that end, is there somebody who's been acting weird? Somebody you know in the Tucson area that started acting weird on February 1st, Sunday, February 1st. The habits changed, patterns changed, behavior changed. They disappeared for big chunks of time and then reappeared, and they were nervous, but then they disappeared again. And maybe in the ensuing days, their patterns were just inexplicable, as was their behavior. That's a tip. That is a tip. Because whoever did this to Nancy Guthrie didn't have a normal routine that next day or the day after. Probably had some real abnormalities in their routines. So you've got the body shape, you've got the bending, the gait, the way the person moves, the mustache and what looks like a goatee. You've got all that to go on. Some of those clothes, that gun holster, that backpack, balaclava, got all that to go on. And then the behavior. Does it just, yeah, so-and-so was acting real weird and didn't come to work for like 2 days with not a good excuse. Or yeah, they just keep vanishing and no explanation, or they're acting real strange and uncomfortable. I can't explain it. Those are good tips. 1-800-CALL-FBI.
Well, that'd be crazy. Yeah. What if it was a nearby neighbor and he simply walked her through the backyards to his house? Yeah, I liked what Melinda said. They should start looking closer, like across the street. I said she's closer than everyone thinks she is. Let's start a petition. Let's do it. Let's see if we can. Crazy. Anyways, that was our last video for the night. Today is officially day 22 of Nancy Guthrie missing. It's crazy. As police say, at least where I live, the person or the persons will keep putting themselves in the investigation. Let's hope that Nancy gets found soon. Shout out to y'all for hanging out for so long, 3.5 hours. I don't know that I'll cover Nancy tomorrow. I might just focus on other cases unless there's a big update. I'm trying to do every other day. I don't want to make it seem like I don't care about Nancy, but like honestly, if there's no real update or nothing, then you know, I don't know. Maybe we'll touch on it. Maybe we won't. But I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you all. Thank you, Calissa. Thanks, Evie, everyone for being here and hanging out the whole night. And the neighbor keeps putting himself in the media. I find that the neighbors aren't being very like friendly from what I've seen on some of those streams too. Like, don't park there, like this and that. And it's just like, you know what? They're trying to find a little old lady. Like, chill out. Someone parks in your driveway, just like chill out. So yeah, Calissa, I just dropped it for you. Anyways, yes. Please, please, please. Yes, and that ring. Hit the like button. Get off my lawn. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Let's just hope that Nancy's case does stay in the media. He has walked down the road to talk to me. Yeah. I know. It could be someone right in front of our faces. We don't know what we don't know. And also we don't know what we don't know with that family, you know. What kind of drama did they have? What familial issues? Far away family, close family. I think anything is possible at this point still. Anyways, I hope you guys have a good night. I will see you guys tomorrow early. Well, maybe like around lunchtime for more true crime. Yes, prayers for Davion, Dom, and Nancy. Exactly. All right, y'all, tap that like button on the way out. Thank you for hanging out. Welcome to all the new subscribers. And I will see you later on the next live. Bye.